Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Joel Moran and I'm here with John Tortorelli, Andrew Velez, and Joe Dehls. And this is now episode 445, the first time we're recording after NFL wildcard weekend. But despite the amount of great football, not great football we saw this weekend, one great game, despite the amount of football that we saw this weekend, this will be an NBA podcast because we haven't had a lot of NBA topics on the show recently, and we covered the NFL over the weekend, live reactions outside of the Rams and Vikings game, which we're going to talk about today. But fellas, how are we doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited to talk some basketball. It's been a while. We got our brother John Tortorelli over here. Mr. River Brown, unfortunately, will not be here. I believe it's because he's reffing right now. Interesting. Wish him well. Hopefully he doesn't miss any calls. But it was a dull weekend until you could argue yesterday. I wasn't too mad about yesterday's outcome. I lost a brother yesterday. I think that's the biggest thing that, like, I'm coming into this episode, I'm a little hurt. I lost a brother, someone that I thought I could ride with, that I trusted, and he turned his back on me.
Sorry, Dehls.
Oh, you're talking about me?
He's talking about Ramley.
Shit.
The Rams.
But apparently,
he doubted them.
I picked up a new brother.
Yes.
This guy's crazy. This guy's so crazy.
Man, no, listen, it was a great weekend of football. My two teams in the NFC got eliminated, so I got to root for another one.
Yep. Yeah.
You know, it's between the Commanders and the Rams, so if you're a Rams or Commanders fan, just drop down in the comments which team you want me to root for next. Maybe for your own sake, it'll be best if I root against you because my teams have been eliminated. But my main team is still in it. You know, Mahomes is still in it, but he didn't play this weekend. He'll play next weekend, so I get my joy back. Thank you.
We know, I mean, you have so many teams you're rooting for this postseason. I don't want to ask you who do you want to see, to win the most. So I think that's pretty clear. I think the better question is the team you want to see win the least. Is it Philly?
The Eagles.
What's second least? Ravens?
Second, no. I actually would like the Ravens to win. I love the story of Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, because that's your pick to win the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. And I want to see Lamar Jackson get to that mountaintop. So I actually don't mind, really.
Okay.
Out of the teams that are left, the Lions, the Commanders, the Ravens, the Eagles, the Texans, the Chiefs, the Bills. Yeah, it's just the Eagles, bro.
Just the Eagles.
But
is
I'm
that
unbiased.
Of Riv, or is that because...
No, it's not because of Riv.
Okay.
It's,
if it was because of Riv, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. I see how you're coming. No, there's nothing wrong with it at all to despise Riv. You're right.
Yeah.
But
I encourage it.
I'm not going that far.
I just think Eagles fans a little bit, they get too amped up about everything, but I'm the most unbiased analyst in the world, so I still have the Eagles going to the Super Bowl despite my clear,
disdain.
I just disdain for them. So, they're so good that I don't know what to do with them.
So why do you dislike them?
I just think that their success is a product of how elite their team is.
What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with that, but people like to push winning is everything when it comes to quarterbacks, when it's a team.
Oh, so it goes back to Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, the Jalen. If the Eagles win the Super Bowl and people try to start putting Jalen Hurts in top 5 conversations, I think I'm going to go insane because I don't think he's a top 5
What if he balls
quarterback.
out in the last 2 games?
Well, then that changes things.
Yeah,
that changes things. If he plays well, but to this point, I think he has kind of not been the best this year.
But interesting because on the live reaction, you said this isn't a Jalen Hurts thing. This is a scheme thing.
It is. Right now, Kellen Moore, I think, is very underwhelming. So I don't think it's a Jalen Hurts thing. But when you look at how the Eagles play football, their offensive line is the best in the NFL. Jalen Hurts, on the first touchdown pass against the Packers, he had 6.7 time to throw in the pocket, which is absurd. It was the most a quarterback has had in the pocket in the NFL this year, amongst every single quarterback in the NFL. Jalen Hurts has an absurdly long time to throw. He holds on to the ball forever. When you play with an offensive line as elite as the Eagles, it really doesn't matter because he doesn't get pressured like that on those longer dropbacks. So I just think that this is a super team.
You're just like, damn, I wish one of my favorite quarterbacks had this luxury. Is that really what it comes down to?
Imagine Joe Burrow had
It's
that.
not jealousy.
Like, I'll say that. If Joe Burrow had this offensive line, it would get spooky.
Well, I think that's the problem with a lot of people with Jalen Hurts. When you think of if you put an elite quarterback in this situation, we wouldn't have a second of hesitation, I think, to say, oh, yeah, Philly's going to win it all.
Like, get Steichen back in Philadelphia. I think we see a prolific pass offense.
Well, I think you just said it perfectly, Dehls. I think that's kind of the sentiment that I echo, where Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. I'm not saying he's like a bottom quarterback, nothing. No, he's a good quarterback.
He's not a bottom 10 quarterback. No.
He was playing like it earlier this year, but, in the totality of it in his resume, no, he wasn't. The Panthers game was awful. But you look at, I think where Jalen Hurts...
Screw you, pal. You shouldn't be laughing. You agreed with him.
I didn't. Well, I guess I did, but I thought he was playing like bottom 15.
I think where Jalen Hurts ranks, I think he's higher than the Baker Mayfields of the world. Mm-hmm. But I think he's like kind of in that tier.
What about Jordan Love?
Baker Mayfield's still playing, John.
I think
or did he get eliminated?
It's close.
You're lucky he got eliminated because Buccaneers matched
He
up
played
quite
well.
with Philly.
He played well.
He had the highest success rate in a loss in NFL postseason history.
He made some plays,
Tough
man.
look.
He clears Russell Wilson.
Yeah, no shit. If Tampa Bay won that
Baker
game,
was
I
awesome.
think I definitely think Tampa Bay matches up better with Philly than Washington.
They've given them
does.
fits for years.
So Hurts played him twice in the playoffs.
Context,
Once
but-
without AJ Brown, once in his first year as a starter. And both times, Todd Bowles was like the perfect game planner. So I think Washington gave him a good game, but that could have been a great match.
and at one point, Baker was like the worst backup quarterback in the league, and now he's like
Crazy.
middle tier pack quarterback.
No, it's incredible.
Now he's a franchise
It's
quarterback.
incredible. It really is nuts.
But yeah, I just feel like what Dell said was correct. Like, I think if any of the upper echelon quarterbacks were in this situation, we kind of don't have hesitancy. I think we probably still have a little bit reservations about Kellen Moore's passing attack. I've never been a fan of that, but better quarterbacks can kind of mitigate those weaknesses a little bit. And
Hey, they barely lose as is.
Yeah,
I know, but Jalen Hurts. I mean, the Eagles can win, and Hurts can throw for like 120 yards.
Agreed.
They dominated the first half, and he did nothing.
When you needed Jalen Hurts to pass and be prolific against the Steelers, no Saquon. He did. But maybe that was the changing of the guard to the Steelers defense being dog shit.
Yeah, tell me about it. Fired Terrell Austin, fired Pat Meyer, fired the whole staff outside Carl Dunbar and Danny Smith.
What's Dunbar teach? Coach?
D-line coach. Yeah, he's amazing. He's done
No,
some
yeah,
work.
Eagles fans are pretty insufferable. So I think that's where it really stems from. But
Wouldn't
for the
you
most
be
part,
if you were an Eagles fan? Like, if I was an Eagles fan and I had literally everything, like I have everything. There's nothing I don't have.
You just haven't won a championship.
That's it.
With
Facts.
this, core.
But I mean, like team-wise.
They're close.
I'd be talking
I
crazy.
just feel like when you're a true winner, you're just kind of humble about
knew
it.
this
You
was
don't
happening.
you kind of just
I knew
don't
it.
talk about it much. When you really win, when
You don't talk
really,
about it so much so that you pick against them.
when you're really part of a
How nuts.
dynasty, you just stay humble. You just
Are you gonna
respect your competition.
2 weeks from now, assuming Baltimore wins, because that is your pick. 2 weeks from now,
Thank you. Just less accountability.
are you going to look us in the eye?
He's a sick fuck.
Are you going to
Joel,
look us in the eye
don't.
and say, "I got the Baltimore Ravens beating the
he's
Kansas
not.
City Chiefs"?
I'm
He's
the
not.
most unbiased analyst in the world. So if the information leads me in that direction,
See, bro, no
then
one's
it's
gonna,
gonna
be
lead
surprised.
me in that
He's gonna
direction.
be like, I always been on this side. I always been on the Chiefs. It's gonna
I ain't
kill
always
me.
been on the Chiefs. I wasn't on the Chiefs at one point of this season. I think the weaknesses
Like
that
a
they
month
had.
ago.
They don't have those same weaknesses.
legitimately.
Probably like 6 weeks.
In the last 3 weeks, he picked against
know.
them every single time. One was valid. Against the
18,
Broncos, that made sense. They were playing no one.
Against the fucking Steelers?
Against the Steelers?
Yeah, I don't know why he did
It
that
was
shit.
wicked. It was wicked.
It was storyline purposes. I was hoping that week 18, the Chiefs would have to play for something, and then the Bengals had a better shot to make it. But clearly the Chiefs.
You were
just
trying to
said,
manifest something?
Yes, the Chiefs clearly said, you know what, we're just gonna fucking beat the shit out the Steelers, so we have an extra weeks of rest. We don't got to play for nothing, and we got the bye week, and that they took care of business. So shout out to them. But no, pretty every fan base is pretty much insufferable, to a degree. I think Ravens fans are also pretty insufferable.
You think Broncos fans suck?
Broncos fans are pretty insufferable too.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think
There's only a couple where I'm just like, all right, we got to calm down.
Steelers fans are pretty insufferable, I'd say.
I
Oh,
agree
yeah,
with
they
that.
think Big Ben is top 10
They're
and stuff.
terrible.
I know some insufferable ones. I also will say that Raven fans are probably one of the most least insufferable fan bases.
Least insufferable?
Because I've got a lot of friends that are Raven fans, and they're some of the most even keel football fans I know.
Well-
now the section I sit in on fucking Saturday, that was far from even keel, but the ones that
Well, I
do
should
know,
preface it by saying, people that I know in person or that I communicate with online that are like content creators for the teams, I really don't have no problems with anybody at all. Like even the Broncos, kind of content people like Zach Seegers and stuff. Like, you know, they do a great job. So it's really
he's the most unbiased Broncos fan by far.
Yeah, so he's you know, he's awesome. He's a really good dude, you know. So the people that like cover the teams and stuff, like for the Eagles, it's MJ.
He's funny.
You know, I feel like
he goes crazy.
He encapsulates what an Eagles fan is.
I love that though.
The gaudy stats, I care about wins.
I'll tell you what, he was cooking when he was talking about Jalen Hurts versus Sam Darnold, and Jordan Love. He was awesome. He spit because both of them were dog shit.
Yeah, listen, the agenda's definitely thriving, you know.
There were some god-awful performances this weekend where as long as you played okay, which is like Jalen Hurts. I think he played okay. I don't think he played great. He didn't play bad, but you had Justin Herbert shit his pants. You had Jordan Love shit his pants. You had Sam Darnold. I mean, these three quarterbacks are some of the worst playoff quarterback you're going to see in your life, maybe.
Never say I don't root for bad guys.
No,
man.
you're here. You're here now.
You know, I was here in the mud.
Now you're in the mud.
This is the
you're
mud.
You're back in the mud.
This is
good for you.
Is this officially the mud for Justin Herbert?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is as bad as it gets. Yeah. Because he was horrendous. He was horrible.
So bad.
And Jordan Love, you're back in the mud. You were in the mud for some time. You had last year. It was nice. The glitz, the glamour. You had that one playoff
one. Was a little bit up.
But then Toyotathon ended.
Back down.
When then? I think like a couple of days before the game.
Yeah, so maybe that's why he didn't play well. No, but you know, when like how I feel about the Eagles though, like if they win, it really, you know, I wouldn't be bothered.
You just gonna have to hear that guy.
You know, I think this is the least invested I've been in a certain team like losing, because last year with the Niners, that was really big. Like I really wanted the 49ers to lose. Like with everything in my heart, I wanted the 49ers to lose. You know, so I knew how insufferable it was going to be if Brock Purdy of all people won a Super Bowl. The year before with the Eagles and Hurts,
that was a big one.
I really felt like that year more so what pissed me off more than anything was the disrespect to the Chiefs. Like they just did not belong with the Eagles roster wise.
The Eagles were.
God forbid the Eagles got to stop, man.
And no, but God forbid they played on turf that was playable. Damn.
Well, sounds like Brazil week 1, but you know nobody mentions that.
Well, we got a rematch of that game, and we saw how it went.
Yeah, it was close, 12-point game, and Jordan Love played with injuries.
It was the most not close.
It also been 12-point
game I've ever seen.
Said, I'll score a
touchdown
touchdown
this year, like the team I would want least to win would be the Eagles, but if they won, I wouldn't hate it. Like there's no team that if they win, I hate it this year. No, I think the Eagles are a really stacked team, and I think this year they are legitimately elite all around. Like I think in 2022 the defense was fake. This year, the defense is like legitimately elite level.
I'm actually, let me not say shocked, but you know, I guess shocked is the word. Both of you guys have Ravens Eagles.
Why are you shocked about that?
But you taking the Ravens to beat the Eagles.
Oh yeah.
After what we saw the Eagles do to them last go round.
It was a very close game.
I'll be honest, the Ravens were able to move the ball. They had almost 400 yards of offense. They over 5 yards to play.
Tucker missed a field goal. That was
it's not like the Eagles. Like the Eagles shut down Cincy. I think T was missing that game, but the Bengals were not able to move the ball. The Ravens were able to move the ball. You know, they're just in situational football, red zone. Tucker missed some field goals, like you said. They didn't execute.
And the Ravens defense is much better this go around. What's your pick to win the Super Bowl? The Eagles?
I have the Chiefs.
Oh, the Chiefs. Okay, they're three-peating. Okay. Facing the Eagles, I'm assuming?
Correct.
Who was your pick?
My pick was Buffalo, but I'll be honest. I have to see the Chiefs lose my own 2 eyes before I can verify the fact
really
that not win the Super Bowl.
That's really what it comes down to.
I get it.
Shout out to my brother George. He's a Chief fan, and this entire postseason, he's been telling me one by one how each and every single team I've rooted for is going to get knocked out in the playoffs. Then yesterday he told me, he goes, being a Steeler fan made you forget what a good football team looks like.
Oh my God.
You guys are a good regular season team.
But yeah,
I don't mean that's a shot.
I think you meant that sincerely. It just made me laugh.
You could be a way worse fan than the Steelers.
Could be.
John,
like you could root for a worse team, I should say.
You could root for the Jags.
Root for the Jets.
You could root for the Jags.
You could root for. Jesus Christ.
Teams.
I could have went crazy.
John,
I should have.
I know that your brother is the Chiefs fan, number 1 Chiefs fan in your life. Who's number 2?
Definitely not you.
What?
It's not.
This is disrespectful right here.
The biggest Chief fan I know in my life is my sister.
Okay.
And that barely counts.
She's nasty for that.
I hate her for it.
Goodness.
She actually listens,
do I make the
so I'll
top
give her
5?
respect.
Yeah, you'll make the top 5.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
Top 5 is always a good place to be.
But not 1, 2, 3, or 4.
No. No.
Psalm number 5. I'm 5th.
I'll be honest, you're a pity selection.
Dude, the thing is, he
you're-
probably
you're
doesn't
Joel
even know
Embiid
5.
MVP.
He
That's what
doesn't
you
know 5 fans.
I have so much gear. I have the Mahomes jersey.
You do.
I
You
have
have
the
the
shirt. I have a shirt that I bought like 4 years
how
ago,
can you be
rolling
a-
with Mahomes.
There's no such
from
thing
Hamid.
as a Chiefs fan that roots the Bengals. That
No.
does not exist.
No way.
No way. I guess I'm just 101. I guess.
You're a freelancer. in that
Nobody
space.
has a Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow
And
background
calls
on their
himself
computer.
a
Nobody.
Chiefs
No
fan.
Chiefs fan. That's for damn
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, no, really.
And
my
no
computer-
Bengals fan either. Let's make that very clear. No Bengals fan has that either.
You know, it's so funny because like I rock with Burrow, I rock with Mahomes, I rock with Herbert. So naturally, I have a lot of
Rock with Lamar
followers.
now,
1,
yeah.
2.
Yeah. I have a lot of followers that are Bengals and Chargers fans, and whenever I think Chargers fans more so are more insecure about it. Whenever I like praise Joe Burrow, they like come out and they're like, "Oh yeah, come on, man, he's not that good." Like, he's whatever. And then when I praise Herbert, you know, the Burrow fans come out like, "This guy doesn't win. What are you talking about here?" So it's just a little funny. They all got their little own rivalries and stuff, but no, I just enjoy greatness. Even though Herbert hasn't been great in the playoffs, unfortunately.
Did you guys like my QB list?
It was
I
really
liked
good.
it. I thought it was great.
I just didn't understand why my guy was at the bottom with a no tag.
I just couldn't.
it's
I
pretty
couldn't fit him
understandable.
anywhere.
Oh, the description of there's no quirky label I can give you. Yeah.
I like the Drake May one. That made
that was
me
my
cackle.
favorite. That was my favorite. Yeah.
I just couldn't find a
Grandma.
place to put them. You know.
Yeah.
There's not a better person at coming up with tier names and
Where'd you put Caleb?
Don't give up.
So why? I guess Bo
Well, I
Nix
don't
is
think
third
Bo
times
Nix
better.
doesn't have like Bo Nix. There's nothing to give up on. You know what I mean? Like he had a
'cause he's
positive rookie season. Yeah.
I mean,
Fucking
actually
had
got
broken bones in his back.
Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. Long term, who are you going with?
I'm taking my quarterback.
I would favor Bo Nix.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I like
That's
both.
close. Yeah, that's close.
I've liked both, even at draft day. I was
we're a
kind
Penix
of partial.
guy.
to-
Michael Penix Jr. had the highest big time throw percentage when he started. Obviously, a small sample size, but he made a lot of hollow.
I was going to say
throws.
you're going to make me talk about Bryce Young again.
You know, Bryce Young was really good too.
He was in the don't give up tier.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's nothing to give. He's up. Like the stock couldn't be higher right
That's
now.
true.
Get him some more receivers.
He just has one terrible season, one great season. No, that's why it's like.
Where
all
was
right,
Kyler?
Kyler was franchise quarterback till this point.
Yeah, that's a very valid description.
God damn it.
Because
He needs to get out of there.
that was the biggest group, and it was like, yeah, like obviously I'd take Kyler over like I don't know where like for the end was like fucking Baker or whatever.
Where
But
was
at the end of
CJ?
the day, he was in the welcome to expectations.
Yep.
Bo Nix.
No, I don't think there wasn't any expectations.
We have expectations now.
Maybe, but I also feel like that group
That
was
division.
you have expectations, you shit the bed, or at some point Jalen
Can
Hurts
I
shit
ask
the bed.
you?
But,
Mac Jones had expectations after his rookie season, correct?
yeah, I guess.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah,
Because now I'm here admitting Bo Nix has pressure now. He was playing with house money. All this season was house money. Now, if we go out there and we get him weapons, we spend some money. Now we have a revamped skill position group. There's expectations on him. We just were a playoff team. You just had the second most touchdowns in a season
he also
by a rookie.
all of those quarterbacks I feel like hadn't met expectations. Bo Nix hasn't really.
Who were the quarterbacks in there next
It
to
was
CJ?
Herbert, CJ, Love, and Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Those are quarterbacks that right now you would take over Bo Nix, so I understand. But the tag fits the description for Bo.
I know what you mean.
Yep.
I do know what you mean.
So this episode will be
NBA.
NBA centric podcast. You know, we went on an NFL spiel, just a lot to get out of the way. Now, with the NBA, I feel like right now we have to talk about the biggest story that's happening in the NBA, and it's the fact that the Pistons are actually good this year.
That's insane.
Last year they were historically bad, comically bad, and there are just a lot of great things happening with the Pistons. They're beating some good competition. They're ultra competitive. Cade Cunningham is taking a real leap in his game, and this team just feels functional. And we can talk more in depth about it. John, what do you think has been the biggest difference from last year to this year?
There's a lot of differences, and I think it starts off one with coaching. Last year, Monty Williams came in. He was really at no point prepared for the job. This was someone that didn't even
want the job.
prioritize. Yes, a great point. Never pay someone to do a job that they vividly tell you they don't want. But this year, it's been a total 180 when you bring in a guy like JB Bickerstaff, who is a good floor raiser defensively, right? This group gets back a Sword Thompson a little more recently, and then to coalesce with that, Cade Cunningham, for the first time, has a respectable supporting cast. You put next to him our guy Malik Beasley. You and I have went back and
Fucking
forth
kills
about him.
me. He's good
and
again.
This year, he's been great, shooting 40% from 3 on 9 attempts. And what's really stunk for this team was losing Jaden Ivey for the season. He was finally finding a rhythm alongside Cade in the backcourt. And the crazy thing is that this team has won 6 of their last 7 games without Ivy. You're beating the Wolves, you're beating the Knicks. And I think to go along with that, veteran addition of a Malik Beasley, you have a guy like Tobias Harris who no longer has expectations. I feel like that's when he's been his best. You look back to when he was getting max deals, we're off the heel of him with the Clippers on that kind of go-lucky team that really had no pressure. And you go along with that and you go down the board, and they went from 26th in defense to 16th in defense. Last year, they were 26th in three-point shooting, around like 34%, pretty abysmal. This year, they're right outside the top 10 because it's not just Beasley and Tobias Harris who have been like respectable starters, but you go down the board on that bench, you've got guys like Simeon Fontecchio have just been really solid kind of reserves. And then most importantly, I think we're seeing this is who Cade Cunningham was advertised to be. I'm saying Rich Chair, this is someone that he's been high on. I think he's the second most deserving first-time All-Star this year. And Cade's the type of lead guard who doesn't hold you back in any sort of way to where you can build a strong foundation with him. And even if there's not that number 2 star right now in Detroit, he's been able to make it better. His three-point shooting's at a career high, 38%, mid-range, 48%. Defensively, he can really lock in on that end late in games, and there's nothing that Cade can't do at a high level. And I feel like with his playmaking ascension as well, it's really been a testament to the first time in his career that he's had a respectable cast.
And it's been super fun to watch the different ways that he can break you down offensively, too. He can go and put his back to the basket, too, and find a way to either get to the cup or just make the right decision. But, John, you hit the nail right on the head. The spacing that Cade Cunningham now finally has, it's kind of opened up a new level to his game and just a different layer to the Detroit Pistons as a whole. You see him right now, he's third in terms of assists per game in the entire NBA. You knew that he had that playmaking to him, but then we wanted to see consistency. One, staying on the court. We know that when you're on the court, you are a special talent. Unfortunately, prior to this season, you had been surrounded by talent that really wasn't great whatsoever. So we really couldn't evaluate how much of a floor raiser you actually are. This season, they had a clear game plan. Let's go and let's put players that can actually fit around Cade. Let's get some floor spacers. These last 2 drafts, they kind of have not done that with Asar, with Ron Holland. These guys are more so players that are slashers, going to be finishing near the basket, more athletic, exactly. But when you go and you add Malik, Tobias, and these are guys that just are trying to be role players, not do anything more than that. Have Cade be the facilitator, be the main guy, whether it's going downhill or obviously creating for his own. We've seen the benefit of spacing around Cade and for the Detroit Pistons. And they still aren't this amazing statistical team. They're a top 15 offense. They're a top 18 defense. They just, in the month of January, have figured out how to play winning basketball. And that's what it comes down to when you're having a young team. Finding a way to string wins together to show yourselves it's possible. And a lot of credit to JB Bickerstaff, like you mentioned, John. Yeah. He got shit on last year. And obviously we see the coaching change this year, and the Cavaliers have been the best team in basketball this year. So it looks in their part they made a right decision. But sometimes decisions like that can be beneficial to both parties. And now we're seeing the Detroit Pistons reap the benefits of the Cavaliers moving on.
Yeah, it's dope to see that, a lot of times you just need to change the scenery. I think we're hearing about that a lot in the NFL. We're talking about your Steelers later, maybe. The Cowboys making change scenery with Mike McCarthy. Even if you have success and great success, doesn't mean that you can't move off a guy or you should move off a guy. Because you look at JB Bickerstaff the last couple of seasons, I think Cleveland has disappointed, maybe, those first rounds. I know, of course, they won last season against the Magic, but that went to 7 games dogfight the year before they lost to New York. But he moves on, goes to Detroit. They're having the best season they've had in a long, long time. And then you look at Cleveland, who picked up Kenny, is, like Drew mentioned, the best, if not the second best team in basketball, right up there with the OKC Thunder, at least from a record perspective. But the Pistons have been really good all season long, but really in these last 12 games has when they've been picking up. They're 10-2 in their last 12. They are a top 6 offense. The defense is top 15, top 16. So it still is this offense that's really leading the charge. But it's not like they're doing this against like just bum teams. They definitely do beat up on the Raptors and the Nets. And don't get me wrong, but they're 10-2 in the last 12. One of those losses was a 3-point loss to Golden State. The other loss was to the Denver Nuggets. But they also beat the Knicks in that span the Wolves, the Suns, the Lakers, who are a decent team. In terms of beating teams over 500, they have more wins against teams over 500 than Orlando and the Bucks. They have the same amount of wins against teams over 500 as the Knicks, the Grizzlies, and the Dallas Mavericks. So this isn't some team that's just going up there and beating up on the bottom feeders like the Utah Jazz and the Raptors. Like, they're taking care of business against under 500 teams. But when it comes to actually playing good opponents, teams that are going to be playoff teams, they could also step up. And I think that a lot of that has to do with Cade Cunningham. We next show, we're probably going to do our all-star predictions. To me, Cade's a lock, all-star starter. To me, he's past that, and is he an all-NBA player this year? Because I think the Detroit Pistons, even last year, I thought, at least me personally, I didn't think they were going to be as bad as they were, right? This was a team that lost 30 damn games in a row. They were fucking dog shit. Coming into this year, I thought they'd be like, probably compete for the play-in. I was not expecting them at really any point in the season to have a 10-2 stretch and be a top 6 offense in basketball. The fact that Cade is breaking out in the way that he is, in the fashion that he is, without a co-star, without a number 2. I look at a guy like Anthony Edwards last season. I'm not trying to send some shots, but goddamn, you got Karl-Anthony Towns, you got Gobert, you had a really good team around you. And with Cade, it's like, oh shit, just get him some shooters and we'll figure it out, So I think Cade has gone above and beyond expectations, even though he was the number 1 overall pick, to have this much success and win this much in Detroit. He's an all-star lock to me, and he's trending like an all-NBA lock as well.
He threw a shot at Anthony Edwards, whether you like it or not.
This is the first time in Cade Cunningham's career that I feel like how I feel about him right now is how I felt about him as a prospect and what he could be in the NBA. I look at Cade Cunningham, and this is a top 10 talent in the NBA. He can be one of the 10 best players in the league. I think the next step for him is finishing around the rim better. He has the frame. He has the size. He finishes at the rim at 53%, which is a very low number for a player of his size. It's not even like 50th percentile. That needs major improvement. But if he can finish around the rim at a very efficient clip, I mean, we're talking about a player that can be the very best point guard in the NBA. I think with SGN, the Lucas of the world, they're like kind of hybrid. So is Cade in a degree. But he can be one of the 5 best point guards in the NBA. Like, I look at Cade Cunningham's ceiling. You mentioned what he's doing with these players. They're good players, but Malik Beasley's a vet minimum contract. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a vet minimum. I know he's making more this year, but that's because of the contract that the Mavericks gave him beforehand.
Well, been bothering me.
They have not surrounded Cade Cunningham with Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. These players aren't those level of players. They're shooting well, and it fits right now. But Cade Cunningham with the better supporting cast, you can only imagine what that can be. And I think that's the great thing about the Pistons, that they found themselves in a scenario where their future is very bright, because Cade Cunningham is showing that he could be what you're saying, like an all-NBA level caliber player, to where this year it's really hard to find 10 players that have been playing better than Cade this year. When you take into account the context of the situation, I want to do a would you rather with you guys. Would you rather Cade Cunningham edition?
Here we go.
First name up, LaMelo Ball.
Cade Cunningham.
I'm going Cade.
Okay, I'm still going to take LaMelo.
I'm going to go Cade Cunningham as well. Next name up, Darius Garland.
I would say Cade.
Damn. Pulling out heartstrings here, man. I'm going with Cade, but I mean, that takes a lot because DUG is my favorite guard in the game.
Garland has been overly impressive this year. He's not been more impressive than Cade.
I agree.
I'm going with Cade Cunningham. Jalen Brunson.
JB. JB is arguably a top 10 player. I think Cade can get there, but right now it's going to be JB.
You're going to say, you talk about Cade becoming a top 5 guard. Brunson's already that.
Yeah, it's definitely still Jalen Brunson, but of course you're talking about a Cade who's 23 years old, right? Like, you're telling me the next 5 years, Cade's going to be a better player.
Whose ceiling is higher?
I think
At their very best.
Cade, because of his size.
I don't know.
Let me say this.
I'm not sure.
Brunson plays the point guard position this season near flawless.
I disagree.
The playmaking from Cade is at a higher tier.
This playmaking from Brunson this season has been drastically better than years before.
Right, but the
I
league has
think
more
that
assists than Jokic.
he's held Karl-Anthony Towns back when he's been on the court with him.
You know,
Karl-Anthony Towns this year.
I wouldn't say that.
This is statistically correct. Karl-Anthony Towns this year, per 40 possessions, he averages the most points in the NBA when Jalen Brunson is off the court.
Doesn't that make sense to you?
Not shocked.
No,
Yeah,
no, it doesn't. You know,
If Brunson, who is your lead guard, who has the ball in his hands more often than not, is off the court, you, the second scorer on the team, well, right now, you could argue first, when you don't have him on the court, yeah, we're going to be looking to you.
No, that signals to me that Karl-Anthony Towns needs more shots. He's been the best player on the Knicks this year. He's been the best offense player on the Knicks this year. And there are a lot of times still where Jalen Brunson gets tunnel vision and he hunts his own shots. And he's a scoring guard. That's his archetype.
He should, though.
I know. I'm not saying
I'm
not saying he shouldn't, but it just goes to show that when we run our offense through Cat, that's when the Knicks have been at their very best this year. And that kind of dynamic with Brunson and Cat trying to figure it out, right now it's more so kind of 50-50. Like Brunson is still getting his own. He's still looking at Cat. And as a point guard, with the way Cat's playing, it should be more of like a 70-30 where we got to look at Cat more.
You're kind of bugging out right now.
No, Cat's been the best offense player on the Knicks this year.
He
has,
without
a doubt.
And I don't disagree. But
Without a
again,
doubt.
there's been no player that has had to adjust their role more on the Knicks than him.
Yeah, but
Brunson.
That's the thing. Jalen Brunson, him taking a leap as a facilitator is him averaging 7 assists per game this year.
I don't even care about the assists, more so as I see him trying to get OG involved, trying to get Mikal involved. Obviously, understanding Karl Anthony Towns has been one of the most impressive centers in basketball. Let's obviously run our offense through him, but in moments still I have to identify and realize when it's my time to go get a bucket.
The Knicks have still been, are they number one offensive rating? Top three?
Top
two,
three.
whatever they are.
Yeah.
I mean, even though, because I feel like if you went through every duo in the NBA, if you take one of them off, the other player's points per 40 possession, whatever, it's probably going to go up. You know, just naturally.
SGA leads the NBA in points per 40 possessions in the league. But, you know, they played through him. You know, that's how OKC plays. They
and when he gets off the court, it gets ugly.
I think that right now, Brunson is still very well in the midst of figuring out how to balance everything. And I think watching the Knicks, like Karl Anthony Towns, clearly, he needs more touches per game. Like, he's playing at that high
He's been
level.
amazing.
And Brunson right now is still struggling to find the right balance with that. And there are times where he does hunt his shot down too much. And with Jalen Brunson and Cade Cunningham in the ceiling, you know, before the Knicks made the move to get Jalen Brunson, and we had this magical season with Julius Randle and stuff that I kind of was annoyed at the time. Mm-hmm. I wanted the Knicks to tank for Cade Cunningham because I wanted him to be the face of the Knicks because he was that special of a talent, in my opinion. We had the magical season. We made the playoffs. We lost in the first round, so we missed out on the draft pick, of course. And Jalen Brunson has played flawlessly. Since he's gone to the Knicks, he's played amazing. And it's the best contract in the NBA. But, like, if you're asking me as a Knicks fan, like Brunson or Cade for the next 5 years, I would go Cade. I think Cade has a higher ceiling.
Is it just because he's bigger?
It's not. It's because I think he's a better playmaker, too.
I don't disagree there.
Because even though Cade is a
And
player
better
that's 5
defender.
inches
I think he's
taller-
had to work. I'm sorry, John.
No, you're good. Cade is the better defender. He's the better playmaker. But at the same time, Wall being 5 inches taller, Brunson's the better interior scorer.
Yeah,
And late in
by a
games,
lot.
you look at who you'd rather have to create from all three levels. I still prefer Brunson's pull-up shooting from three. So I think that is something that most teams are going to find more appealing late in the game.
He's a veteran player, though. I mean, Brunson's, you know, he's been the guy in New York for multiple years now. This is Cade's really first year breaking out, being the player he is. So I'm not surprised.
Also, Cade's third year. Cade played 12 games in
and his first year didn't play. Exactly. His first year didn't play. This is really his second year.
Like, I think Cade Cunningham, his ceiling,
second year he didn't play. First year he missed like a month.
First year he missed a month with his ankle. Yeah.
his ceiling is like I said,
high.
like one of the 5 best point guards in the NBA. Right now, I think Brunson, he's like you said, he's a more well-rounded, efficient scorer. So it's really between if you value efficient scoring over defense and playmaking, then you can swing things a little bit. But you know, right now I'm fine with Jalen Brunson being over Cade.
Just for context on shot attempts, Karl Anthony Towns right now is averaging 16.5 field goals a game. That's 30th in the NBA. He's right between Steph, Levine, Jaren Jackson, DeMar, Jordan Poole. Jalen Brunson's at 18 shots a game. He's 15th with Devin Booker, Kyrie, Brandon
That's what I'm
Miller,
saying.
RJ.
You know, Brunson should be taking less shots than Cat this year.
What's Brunson's efficiency?
So I have the true shooting percentage here.
Here we go.
Karl Anthony Towns, his true shooting percentage is 66.4% true shooting.
Which is amazing.
Brunson has at 60.3% true
Great,
shooting.
which is also amazing.
Karl
for a
Anthony
guard.
Towns, looking at their point differentials per clean in the glass, Karl Anthony Towns has a plus 8.4 point differential with the Knicks this year. Brunson is at minus 3.3 this year. So I didn't think Cat would be better than Brunson. Like 100%, I didn't. What Cat is doing, like he's reaching the highest level of what he can be, and I think there's even more room for him to improve. It's really just a testament of how great Cat has been. And maybe I should have saw it coming because, nobody saw Jalen Brunson being what he was. And then he got to the Knicks and he took everybody by storm.
Tom
and
Thibodeau's the greatest ever.
Tom Thibodeau is amazing. Outside of playing like guys 40 minutes per game.
Yeah,
But I understand it because why would I dig into this bench that is not that great?
Area Hoop Porty, man. He's good. He's good.
I just think
really
that the
think my guy's
starters
fresh
are
to the
amazing.
playoffs.
I think
the starters
you need
are
to find players, though. You need to give
Oh,
guys
no, you need to
opportunity.
find him. I
Yeah.
agree.
The starters are amazing, but you cannot play Mikal Bridges 39 minutes per game
That's not gonna
and then
be sustainable.
expect
Yeah.
in the playoffs for him to have fresh legs and hit his shots. I feel like the way that Tibbs is running the rotation, and he's going to do what he does because that's what Tibbs is. That's what he's always done. If he keeps doing this, we're just bound to run into the playoffs and OG Anunoby and Mikal not have their legs and just miss
And
open
you have
shots.
to rely on that bench more. And I don't really think the bench is too much of an issue once Mitch comes back and you have him and Deuce.
No.
But I think for right now, I mean, there's a lot of positives with what Tibbs has done in New York, but definitely that's like a huge concern, I think. It's not really a sustainable way to keep your guys fresh, like you said. And then also we saw the Knicks last year get completely ravaged by injuries to the point that they're missing 6 rotation players, and that's why they lost in Game 7 and it wasn't competitive.
Who has a higher ceiling, John Moran or Cade Cunningham?
Ooh, man.
That's tough.
Here's breaking down both. John Morant is, if not a little bit better, at worst, as good of a playmaker as Cade Cunningham. Scoring the basketball, going downhill, getting to the basket, John Morant is by far the better player. He's more athletic. It's just a matter of the 3-point scoring and mid-range.
Cade is the more complete player, but John Morant's the better scorer in the postseason. Now, I think that can change if Cade does start to level up in the interior, but outside the Lakers and Anthony Davis, there's not really any defense, I say, that can stop John Morant from averaging 28 and 8 in the postseason. But I would say that if you're building a team, you would more likely rather have Cade because for a point guard to be a plus defender and also a top 3 playmaker, top 5 playmaker is his floor, that's something that you can kind of build a higher foundation off of. Whereas with Ja, he hasn't necessarily led multiple offenses. Well, he has led one top 10 offense, but I think there's a little bit more of a ceiling when you have Cade because he can kind of complement your supporting cast.
And I have more faith that Cade will figure out shooting around the rim than Ja will ever become an efficient 3-point or mid-range shooter. Like Ja's at 31% this year, I believe, which I think is a career high, at least over the last couple of seasons. He's been like around sub 30. I know he's been injured and suspended and whatnot, but it's hard to see a world where Ja Morant turns into an efficient shooter. And if you're just going to be a downhill guy and rely strictly on athleticism, it's hard to, have a 10-plus year career where you're just going to rely on that.
People didn't think De'Aaron Fox would ever be a prolific 3-point shooter. He's been that the last 2 seasons. Who knows?
What is he shooting this year?
De'Aaron?
Yeah.
Is it not like 37?
Okay, because, man, De'Aaron Fox, that would be huge for his development. Last year, I think he settled for a little bit too many threes. But, no, the fact that, to answer the question, John Morant and Cade.
It's not his career. He shot 34%
Oh, I'm
one
capping.
year.
Last year he shot 37.
Yeah, last year he was amazing. Cade Cunningham, the fact that we're having this conversation, I really just think speaks to how special he's been this year. Yeah. And it's such a great thing for the Pistons to have moving forward, like a true franchise player and a game changer. And, this is why, people are going to start pounding the table for them to maybe make a move to get them some more help.
Calm down. Let's relax. I mean, if
not
you want
a major move.
Okay, I was gonna say around the edges, like if you want a couple moves here and there, but I'm not trading any sort of draft capital, young players. Like I think what you're doing now is great, right? This 10-2 stretch is amazing. This is probably one of the best stretches Detroit has had in 3+ years at a minimum.
Decade.
Yeah, probably a decade. Maybe Blake got a couple in there. Who knows? But I think right now you just stay patient because this is still a younger team who, like we've mentioned, this is still a lot of. You have a mix of young players and kind of veterans who are on like short-term deals with Tobias, who kind of got brought in because number one, you had to pay somebody, but number two could kind of stabilize everything. But I would give it at least another year. See what you got in some of these young players before you make a move. That's the next step. It's like you got Cade. This is your number one. Who's going to be your number two? Do you really have faith in Asar or Jaden Ivey or whoever one of these young players are? Do you need to go on the trade market or potentially another draft pick?
Also, from what Cade has shown us, it doesn't seem as if he's a diva or he's self-centered and everything's about him.
He's been through some shit. It seems to complain one time.
I was going to say he's been on one of the worst teams I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And he has trusted the process and stayed the course, and now he's come down the other side. He is at the front and center of why they've been so amazing, and now rightfully so, he's getting all the attention.
Cade is this decade's Devin Booker. What Devin Booker went through is first 5 years in Phoenix was absolutely fucking miserable. And Cade had a very similar kind of intro to his NBA
So
career.
you're saying Kevin Durant is coming,
Maybe.
or maybe Chris Paul.
Even better.
Maybe
Even
a
better.
new age Lonzo Ball going to the Pistons or something. A new age version of CP3. It's weird where the Pistons find themselves at because it's like I feel like in the last 2 drafts, Cade was more of like an unknown long term for like where he was gonna fit in and everything. Like the potential for him to be the franchise guy was there, but you know, the injuries and just really the roster building wasn't there for them to really see what he could be. So they went best player available in their minds the last 2 drafts with Asar and Ron Holland. And we see right now Ron Holland, he plays sometimes, but you see that he's not the best fit around Cade because he can't really shoot right now. Asar too. And it's like, had they known Cade would be this, maybe in those drafts they go for like more established shooters. Maybe instead of Ron Holland, you draft like Dalton Connect or something. And I just think it's an interesting tidbit.
Or McCain, if we knew what McCain, how
Yeah,
well
yeah,
he
of
would
course.
translate.
Hindsight's 2020, but I feel like
of course.
where the Pistons are right now, they're just like now it's like a clear direction of this is how we're going to build our roster moving forward. And we're not just like blindly having faith that one guy's just going to ascend. One guy has ascended, and now like it's just clear what they're going to do moving forward, just building around him. The Kings are on a 7-game win streak. And Mike Brown got fired, and the entire NBA world was in a frenzy. Steve Kerr, Mike Malone came to his defense. They are friends of his, and the Kings aren't known for being the best organization. And maybe the process behind firing him wasn't the best, but with the way that they're playing now, it's hard to deny that he was getting the most out of this group. The first game after Mike Brown, they lost, and everybody started going, you fired Mike Brown for nothing. Look at you, ha Kings. And then ever since then, they haven't lost a game. And their most impressive win came recently against the Celtics, where Domantas Sabonis did something to the Celtics that Bam Adebayo would never do, John, by the way.
He dominated.
At least 2024 or 2025, Bam Adebayo would never do.
He had a double.
And did he also dominate Bam Adebayo in their matchup head to head?
That makes you think.
Oh my goodness.
That makes you
It
think.
doesn't make me think at all.
He was
Bam
hitting
played.
threes, bro. He was so
Sabonis
on.
played a wonderful game. I mean, he even had the final stop on Bam as well, kind of made himself for a tough mid-range look. I don't know if you wanted me to start here with this King streak because
I really want to hear you talk about Domantas Sabonis and his impact on basketball.
Right. It's been a classic example of a team finding that kind of energy, and there's a coaching change, and I think at that point in time, I didn't like the process of firing Mike Brown. I chastised the Kings, thought it was a terrible move. But it's very clear that Mike Brown at a certain point no longer had the command of the locker room to kind of get his guys to really like dial in. And what Christie's done since coming in is kind of reinvigorated this group in many different ways. For one, with De'Aaron missing 3 of their last 4 games, which included that win against the Heat, going to double overtime, damn near. I think it did. It was an example of you put Keon Ellis into that starting spot, and someone who was quite clearly needed for this team finally gets his minutes, which he always needed. And defensively, between him and Keegan Murray, they've kind of built a little bit more of a foundation. Alongside that, DeMar DeRozan has a couple of vintage clutch performances, and most importantly, Domantas Sabonis has been their best player this year, with Fox missing a little bit of time, and it's been an example of him kind of finding a little bit of these refinements in his games, taking 2.5 threes, and he's been making them. Now, is he a floor spacer? Is he commanding guys to come out, and is he actually pulling guys out?
You tell me, John.
Not
not, but
necessarily.
he's fucking
but
making
if he
them,
continues,
so-
if he continues making them, you're going to see his attempts
He's done
go
it
up.
this year. He's a hard worker. Have you seen the documentary on Netflix about all the basketball players and Sabonis being featured? You would understand.
Have you also seen who's second in 3-point percentage this year behind Nikola Jokic?
Is it Sabonis? At
Nikola
46%?
Jokic and Sabonis
Oh
lead
man,
the league in shooting.
imagine saying that he can't stretch the floor, man. It's bizarre.
I said he didn't space the floor.
Oh,
That's
he's
different.
spacing it now.
He's been
And-
spacing
not
it pretty
spacing
well.
it. Spacing the floor is
He's
actually
not getting the respect as a
respect.
shooter,
Ah, look
but
at
I
you.
mean, shit, bro.
But
He's making
look,
all of them.
It's an example in the regular season. This is someone who can lead you.
Oh,
on a better
now
Oh, look
it's
at
the
this
regular
BS. Look at this
season.
BS. Respect the
Now
Kings,
it's the
baby.
regular
I think
season.
you guys fall way too in love with these regular season performances, because when it's not Nikola Jokic, there's always going to be a ceiling in a offensive center leading your
Aren't
offense.
you a Garland fan?
But in the
Oh my
regular-
God, you took the words out of my brain.
I said it.
This is coming from a Darius
Garland's a
Garland
Did he say
fan.
center specifically? No, you didn't.
He
said-
just
he said
literally
center.
just
Now
did,
he
which is
just-
why
yeah,
I
listen,
didn't say it
he
out
said
loud.
center.
But Sabonis this year in the regular season is having his best season. I mean, we've seen him with a 3-point shooting and also leading the league in rebounding for a third straight year. And he is a wonderful offensive player in the regular season. And we've seen him with this Kings offense really start to find his rhythm. And I think most importantly, it's kind of this team finding their hot stretch, their hot streak at a nice part in the season. It's an important time when you move on from a head coach. But I think in this Western Conference, you're not going to see the Kings move into the top 6. And quite frankly, I think right now they're playing great
Disrespect
ball,
is getting
but
too
I think
far
there's
right
a
now.
ceiling for this team personally.
Have you seen who's been playing
Look at this
unbelievable
disrespect.
basketball in the last 7 games for the Kings as well? It's hilarious. Keegan Murray. On almost 7 attempts, he's shooting 46% from 3. Ooh. I think that it's so funny to me because one of the main things that I said, 2 things that I said. I think not playing Keon Ellis minutes because obviously what he brings to the defensive side of the ball.
Made no sense.
That made 0 sense. But the lack of development that we saw from Keegan Murray, these were some of the reasons that led to Mike Brown being fired. And Keegan Murray, while he's been out, he has been playing some of the best basketball we've seen since maybe his rookie year. Now, we talk about the defense that he brings as well, but what has been missing has been his floor spacing, his level of 3-point shooting. Because as a rookie, he was historically great making 3-point shots, and then we hadn't seen that since. But now in this stretch, he starts hitting his 3-point shot. Obviously, you understand what Malik, what Sabonis is going to give you. Fox has been injured, but even in the 4 games that he's played, he's been finding the 3-point shot a little bit. That's what I made that mistake. He shot 37% in their win
During
streak.
this win streak, yeah.
During this win streak, excuse me. This season overall hasn't been the most efficient 3-point shooter, but in this little stretch that he's played, only 4 games, he's starting to find it a little bit.
Clearly, he was missing because Mike Brown was coaching the team.
I think that is so funny, though, because both him and Keegan Murray have started to hit their shots. But all in all, I think we're starting to see just the Kings play a little bit more free and honestly just hit their shots, which they weren't doing before. And unfortunately for Mike Brown, that's going to be hey, they're winning basketball games now. It's going to be on you. But no, I think what we're seeing now is their players are hitting their shots. The players that they relied on are hitting their shots. And Keon Ellis is playing basketball, which is something that they desperately needed.
I think that's really the biggest thing here, the Keon Ellis aspect of it. For whatever reason, Mike Brown was just not playing Keon Ellis. It was just very sporadic minutes. And when you look at the numbers per cleaning the glass, Keon Ellis has been, numbers-wise, the most impactful player on the Kings. They are a plus 13.3 when he's on the court. They're 8.7 points better on offense. They're 4.6 points better on defense. And he has the highest point differential on the team. This is when Keon Ellis is on the court. And I feel like last year, we saw him make this type of impact in the second half of the season. So we thought naturally Mike Brown was going to continue the hot wave and continue to play him. And then it just never came into fruition. I think Devin Carter also, he's just been playing
great.
more.
Yeah.
He's playing really well. He's a frisky defender. And Malik Monk, I can't speak enough about what Malik has been able to improve on as a playmaker. His passing is sharp. His decision-making, he's a low turnover guy. He's averaging 23 and almost 8 assists during this win streak. And he's playing some really good defense. I remember in the offseason when Malik Monk was, rumored to go other places and stuff, the place that I wanted him to go the most was the Spurs. Because I did think that if Malik Monk was able to be the lead guy for the team, he can average 22 and 7 because he's that good. And De'Aaron Fox has only played 4 games in his 7-game win streak. And Malik Monk in those games, man, he's just been fantastic. And it was so huge for the Kings to keep him. And they're just following Doug Christie's lead. Like, he has a clear plan for them. He has control of the locker room right now. And he's also a former Kings player. And I think that helps a lot just with connecting with the players. A former player, they just respect his voice a little bit more. And the Kings look good. I know John's not high on these centers that average high rebounds. Instead, he likes guards like John Conchar who can rebound the ball, but not centers. Sabonis,
zero sense.
he doesn't make the cut.
The only thing
do
that
love John
bothers
Conchar.
me, you loved him. I don't know if you still do. You should give it up if you do.
You did love John Conchar.
You did love him. You don't love him. You shouldn't love him
That's
anymore.
not
Is it because you
relevant.
had the
No,
same
no,
first
no,
name?
no. What-
You love John Collins?
What?
Just because his name John? Why do you
That's
like
great fantasy.
So let me ask you something, John. How come John Conchar was worthy of your love, but not Sabonis?
John Conchar has absolutely nothing to do with this conversation.
No, but you loved him at one point.
No,
yes or
can
no?
I'll bring relevancy back.
Yeah.
What killed me about that argument was that you talked about years that weren't this year. That's what killed me the most.
He just wasn't buying into this 30 whatever game sample.
We've seen this with many different players. There will naturally kind of be with Karl Anthony Towns. We're seeing him play his best basketball in the regular season, and
not
then
buying
people
that?
will kind of overreact to that sample and then overreact in the postseason. For me, I like to look at the entire regular season. There's that expectation that's built in to where I kind of understand sometimes what a player is going to be in the playoffs and how his game might translate better to the regular season.
Well,
I
with
think
him
Karl
shooting
Anthony
well
Towns is an
now-
example of a player who has struggled at times in the playoffs, and people kind of fall and they'll fade on Cat and they'll really criticize him. Then he gets to New York, he plays wonderful in the regular season, people shower him with praise, the expectations rise, and they really dissipate in the postseason. I think it is a similar discussion with
What do you think?
Demontis
Catch
Sabonis.
Julius Randle?
Wait, what?
No, I don't. I never said
Would
that.
you
But it's
say-
an example of a
talking about a
player
playoff
where
dropper.
his play will kind of be a roller coaster from the postseason to the regular season.
I just think
and
that
people will really overanalyze the current
Now,
moment.
I'm going to get into
Would-
it in
would you say-
conversation now
Would-
because
would
Cat's going to be fine. The style of play, the way that he's
He's the
playing,
same
on
player he
defense
was in
might
Minnesota.
No,
He's
the
the same
defense.
player he was in
I
Minnesota.
already know it's going to be
But
ugly.
the
He's having a career
spacing's going to be a
season.
lot better.
Yeah, but he's the same player that he was in Minnesota, right? We kind of understand that in the postseason, Cat may not play at the same exact level. It's
a different infrastructure, though.
But exactly.
I agree.
Okay,
Okay, that's
I
true.
think he's got
That's
confidence,
true.
a lot of confidence
Right?
now,
OJ
too.
Anunoby's
He's
better
feeling
than
like
Jaden
that dude.
McDaniels.
Man, we
That's
found a
true.
way to
But those
incorporate
same
the Knicks twice
weaknesses will
here.
be there in the postseason.
No,
It's really
deserved.
what I'm
Okay, no, okay. So would you say it's fair that you are underreacting to the regular season and overreacting to the postseason?
No, I think once again Sabonis brings a very specific role, but I think
So
his
let me-
ceiling is a lot
so
more.
Because it was
over-
7 games against the
Bam
Warriors.
is more vital to what his defense has
Oh,
been.
this goes back to Bam.
And
Has
if you
to.
put
I was gonna
Bam in
ask, 'cause what's
Sacramento, you're looking
Bam's-
at the team a lot
Bam
higher of a
moving
ceiling.
forward.
Bam as an offensive engine's what? He's not fucking
Bam's a
Sabonis.
defensive engine that does basically everything for that Miami group, which doesn't
Oh,
have
they
the
can't
same
make
perimeter
layups.
defense. That's a group playing Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier in their backcourt.
But Bam's been
You
so bad
compare
on
that-
offense that it's
Okay,
like,
but you
damn.
got to compare the impact and the value that he brings. Miami is one of the most dreadful backcourts.
How about
in
the impact
NBA.
that Sabonis has brought on the defensive
You're not
side
even
this
gonna let me
season?
finish my sentence.
I'm just adding to the conversation that the truth is
He's been a good
this
defender.
idea of Sabonis being a bad defender in years prior is
tried.
I didn't
accurate.
say he was a bad defender. No, I didn't. I said he wasn't an established rim protector in the postseason. Doesn't mean you're a bad defender.
No, John, you're lying.
Wait, so John, let me ask you this.
Lying.
Wait,
So
so
he's not a good rim
this
protector.
is the thing
Doesn't mean
because
that
I
what
feel
he's
like
saying.
there are players that in the playoff series sometimes they tend to struggle, right? We know that. I just feel like in a 7-game series there is more volatility than an 82-game regular season sample size. Sabonis, yes, I don't think he's a high-level defender. He tries and he shows effort. This version of Sabonis, are you telling me that's an offensive liability in the playoffs? The one that has improved his shooting drastically?
What do you think I'm gonna say about
He already has attempted
Yes.
more threes this year than
What do you
last
think
year.
I'm gonna
I
say?
think you're going to
that's all?
say yes.
So Sabonis is an
John's had
offensive.
enough of this shit.
This version of
the answer
Sabonis.
yes or no?
Obviously, the answer is no if he's making a 3 a game and he's
right, baby.
doing a little bit more.
Second
but
highest 3-point percentage in the league behind Jokic.
But I
He's
think
doing
you're
a
really
lot of it more.
overanalyzing. There is a very clear ceiling, a definitive ceiling that
There is.
holds you back from being a contender.
it's Sabonis'
if their
fault.
center is running your offense and it's not Nikola Jokic. Because Nikola Jokic does what Demontis Sabonis does at a level that is so clearly higher that you can run
Hey,
your
John,
offense that way and
what
be a
if, what if
contender.
what if we just took my hoodie and just enjoyed basketball and just enjoyed the season Sabonis is having, and we don't got to
No,
sit here and
no,
worry
I
about
like
what
this
has going to happen in
conversation.
the playoffs.
I got
I like-
targeted for a take I was right about. So that's
What,
why
You're not
what are
right
you
about
right
it.
about? Bam has been
Have you seen the Twitter
horrendous.
replies?
Bam's a better player.
This year,
It's the Twitter
no.
replies by fans of a certain player. That's the end of the
Brother,
result.
I was talking
That's the end of the
about
reality.
24-25. You brought up 2020. Why?
I brought up 2020 to 2024.
Who's better?
That was 4 years.
You brought up 2020 on a
once
defensive
again-
play on Jason Tatum in 2020, talking about when I'm
Okay,
trying to talk
John,
about this
John,
year.
John.
Look, he's fucking laughing.
John,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
this is
I'm
ridiculous.
sorry for targeting
I
you.
thought we were talking about the Kings. Now we're kind
Let's
of going
talk-
back to a
we are
debate,
talking about the Kings.
and we're
Talking
really,
about Sabonis.
I know, but we're really trying to talk about Sacramento as a point of the topic.
Okay,
this
we
is
are
a
talking about
topic
them.
about the Kings returning to Bam Adebayo once again. But my argument was what
You
Bam
mentioned
brings in the
Bam.
defensive. You guys brought that up.
No,
I
I
think
mentioned
you
Bam.
did.
I think you did. John.
You brought him up.
I think you did, John.
I didn't I was not looking to
I
come
made
back
the John
for this
Conchar comment that led to it.
Right.
I
But
think
you
threw him off
mentioned
his
which is
game.
Bam.
unnecessary.
I think you threw him off his
But
game.
the point, the very simple.
You know
You're
what?
looking like Sabonis in the playoffs. You're getting a little rattled.
Hey, calm down. I'll take some responsibility here too, because I said what bothered me was that I was talking about this year when it come to Bam and Sabonis.
Hey, listen,
I did
this
say that.
conversation
The
I
point-
like though.
I did have a very clear point that I think in the playoffs, Sabonis would not play at the same level. And so I'm not going to overreact to a 35-game sample size. I think a lot of King fans would agree.
You just don't
looking
know
at
about
that Warriors
Sabonis.
series, you would rather have someone like Bam who brings such high value on the defensive end where, like I was trying to say before I got cut off, the Heat do not have a good backcourt defensively. It's Terry Rozier, it's Tyler Hero, it's Duncan Robinson. Look at the Kings backcourt. Keon Ellis, Keegan Murray, even De'Aaron Fox, and Malik Monk are better defenders than guys like Terry Rozier. But Bam does everything on the defensive end. We talked about numbers. You really highlighted how this season specifically, Sabonis had a higher opponent. His opponent field goal percentage of the rim was a little bit lower than Bam's. And throughout his career, that's even sometimes been a trend. But what I was really trying to underscore was how valuable Bam's been as an all-around defender. And oftentimes, they're asking him to defend in two places at once. And that's a role that Sabonis could really never
John.
play.
I would never argue
And that
defense.
value to me,
I would never do it.
and we've seen this in
John.
multiple playoff runs, is more valuable.
John.
And that makes him a
See, he
clearly
goes
better
back to
player.
talking about seasons that aren't this,
we
and
know,
that's where I'm
we know
losing
Bam
me.
Adebayo is a great defender. We know he's an elite defender. That is not what
Ever in
we're
question.
talking about here. When you talk about Sabonis, okay, the defensive personnel around him is better than what the Heat have to offer around Bam. Nobody is arguing that Sabonis is a better defender than Bam. He's a much better offensive player. It's not close.
This year, yes.
This
But other
year,
years, that's not true.
Last year, he was
Past
better.
years,
What about last year?
He's a 15%
What about last year?
better offensive
What
player.
15%? Where the fuck you
Yeah.
get the number from?
He just made
I'd
it
say
up.
he's a little
A
bit better.
percentage?
But
I
Bam's
think
also
he's-
been on the
I
downward
think
trend in
that-
terms of like as a shooter, as an offensive
Right.
player.
I
As a
think
playmaker, he's still good, but
15% is to me
And
kind
also,
of. All right, don't let me speak. Yeah.
The
Don't let me
player,
speak.
the
John,
player,
you've been
you just
talking
talked
like
for 30
oh my
minutes,
God.
bro. Christ.
You've been talking the whole
I'm trying to explain
time.
why I said 15%. I think he's
Okay,
a
I'm
better
interested.
offensive player, but
Why 15%?
Bam can still play make at a very high level.
better than
This year,
Sabonis?
No, but he can at a high level, and he's shown that. in
Does
the
he finish
past.
better than Sabonis?
And he
Oh,
also
no.
doesn't have a true guard.
Does
to
he
really
shoot
set
better than
him up.
Sabonis?
No, but in the past he hasn't. He's had guards in the past,
Jimmy Butler.
and this was pertinent when they had Goran Dragic and Jimmy in the 2020 season, and Jimmy into the 2023.
Can Bam
playoff
Adebayo
run.
lead an offense?
Bam, no.
Can he lead
cannot.
a good offense?
No, but
can
he
Sabonis?
hasn't had a guard to set him up necessarily either. whereas
Okay, I don't
Sabonis
care
has
about
had that
setting up.
too.
Can he
So-
lead it himself? Can
No,
he
but
be?
he has in the past.
Can Sabonis
You've
do
seen
it?
him.
Can Sabonis do it?
You've seen Sabonis
Can-
do it in
so-
the regular
so-
season. The playoffs, no.
Okay, but this is the thing, John, and this is where I'm kind of getting I'm just getting confused by the argument because it's turned into an offense versus defense thing, and I understand if you're valuing defense a lot, but Sabonis right now with how he is as a player, you're saying that unless you're Nikola Jokic, you're a clear liability in the playoffs as
I did not say
as
that.
an offensive
No, that's
hub?
not what I said. At
Okay,
any
what
point.
is it?
I said if
what
you're
I
not
heard was
Nikola
if you're not
Jokic,
Nikola Jokic, you being the lead
you're
guy,
not- there's a
defensively.
there's an
there's
issue.
a
Okay,
clear
okay.
playoff ceiling
Okay.
if you're in the main
But
offensive
this is where I feel like you're
Dude,
being
you lied about the offensive shit, Bam and Sabonis.
I think this is where you're being unfair. The expectation for Sabonis is to be his team's leading defensive player, leading rim protector. Bam Adebayo is his team's lead rim protector and lead defender. We know that. But Bam Adebayo cannot be your lead offensive guy in no world.
Absolutely not.
Most people
So
understand
you're measuring Sabonis as what he can be as the best defender on a team, but not Bam by what he could be as the best offensive player on the team. There are very few players that can be the best player on a contending team. Sabonis and Bam both are not that. They
Right.
both need rosters that are great around them to go on deep playoff runs. Sabonis needs more help
He does
from a
need more
defensive
help than
standpoint. Bam needs more help from an offensive standpoint.
You make a fair point. I think that most of what you just said is true, but Bam is a one-man defense. And I think the difference in this debate is really just that Sabonis, he's a better offensive player. This year he's been much better offensively, and no one can really deny that whatsoever. But in the
One-man defense, they got cooked by the Celtics. How was their defense good against you guys?
No,
All
they had
right,
the game.
so
He's not a one-man defense.
in the
will even-
postseason, we've seen that Sabonis is someone who does drop off. Bam in the
One
postseason,
playoff series.
Bam's been a better offensive player in the
It's
offense.
one playoff series against the
Where
Warriors.
Draymond stomped
offensively?
on his ribs, by the way.
That
He
was
was hurt.
Game 5.
He's playing through injury.
Sabonis also played through a wrist
Before
injury in that playoffs,
before
too.
that, Sabonis was not playing as well as he did in the regular season.
Sabonis played through a wrist
and
injury,
secondly, in the playoffs, Bam's been the better offensive
Yeah,
player in the
but
playoffs.
but I'm telling you, Sabonis had an injury in that season.
It off just because he's been there.
Production.
Just because
The
he's been
100
there.
game
So all right,
sample
it's
size.
fair to say, give me a player who hasn't been in the playoffs the last couple of years. Give me a great one.
Sabonis isn't good
Cade.
enough to lead his team to that
No.
floor of being a consistent playoff team. If he was better, they would have made the playoffs last year.
Let me
They made
think
the
the
play in
point-
the West.
They didn't make the playoffs.
But it's the West. The West is tough.
Okay, and so was the Eastern Conference when the,
The
Heat went
East?
to the East. They went to the
They were the
conference finals
fucking
3
8th
times.
seed.
And they beat the Celtics to get there.
John.
The Celtics has had one of the best playoff runs
John,
we've seen. It's
John.
clearly a high-end.
Bam
There's
Adebayo.
clearly high-end teams in the East
This
that
is
they need to be able to
Bam
win.
Adebayo as your best player in the West is a consistent playoff team.
Why did I say that?
You're
Never
saying
said that.
Sabonis can't do that, right? Can Bam do that?
You're going nowhere with this. I
Is
really
that not
don't.
a valid question? You just said Sabonis cannot be the best player on a consistent playoff team. That's what you said, right?
I mean, yeah.
Can Bam
At the same
Adebayo be
level.
that? Can Bam Adebayo be the best player on a consistent playoff team? The best player.
There's not a single person in the world that thinks that. So why would you ask me that question? You know the answer.
I'm asking you to see what you think.
Neither are number one. But my point was, and my point still is, Bam is the better number 2. That's the end of the
Did
discussion.
Sabonis not do it and they were a 3 seed in the West?
Yeah, he even led a 4-seed Pacers team, and then he didn't play in that playoff run. But once again, I think this really comes back to a ceiling versus floor thing. Sabonis has the higher floor. Bam has the higher ceiling. And that's my argument.
What's
I
the
think
ceiling with Bam?
You go to the finals with him as number 2. With Sabonis, I don't see that.
With
If
Jimmy
you put
Butler
him in-
going on a superhero
If
run.
you put Sabonis in Miami, they would not go to the finals. with him.
What happens? What happens if
put
Sabonis
Sa-
has a guy that's averaging fucking 40 in the playoffs? They'll probably go on a decent run too.
That's a fair point. Jimmy only did that for 1 series, then he got hurt in the next round. So
Against the Knicks, he was still awesome.
Played well in
he
every
played
series.
2 games versus the Knicks. 1 game healthy. What are you talking about?
He played 2 games against the Knicks
In that series? How
in the
many games did he
second
play?
round when they were the 8th seed.
I
He
think
was
Jimmy
hurt.
Jimmy
He was
missed
hurt the majority of that
I think
series.
He
Jimmy's-
got hurt, but he
did
played
get hurt.
in,
He
like,
did
every
play.
game.
I think he missed the last game and they still
Maybe,
won.
but 2 games, that is incorrect. That is incorrect. I was hoping Jimmy was out for the series.
Right.
Watching the series, I was because I wanted the Knicks to win. He was
He
not
got hurt
out
early in the series.
No, he did. He got hurt game,
game
1.
1, and he wasn't the same when he came out.
Yeah, but he still averaged like 20.
He was nowhere near as efficient when he came back at the end of that series. It wasn't the same Jimmy. I think that's from my memory. I was like, I almost
Well, I
felt
remember
like it
game
wasn't the
2
same
versus
Jimmy.
the Celtics when he basically one-man the Celtics and won. Because that was the day of my graduation party. I'll never forget that.
That was when him and Grant got into it.
Yeah, and
Jimmy
he absolutely, I don't know why Grant thought that he was someone.
Jimmy averaged
That's why he's on the
25, 7, and 6 in that series.
Which games did he miss?
He played 5 games. He
He missed 3 and 4?
He probably just missed that. No,
No,
there was
he
6.
played-
It was 6-game series. He missed.
Missed one game?
He missed 1
But
game.
he was hurt for the majority of one
Yeah,
that
but
played.
he averaged 25.
Okay, and what was the efficiency in
7.
that series?
It was dog shit.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
why.
43% from the field, 11%
So
from 3.
he averaged 36 for
But even
one
still,
playoff
they
series.
needed Jimmy to average 40 against the Bucks to even get there. If not,
in
we wouldn't be
2020.
having this conversation.
Not
If
in
not, it's
2020.
they had one run
Not in
5 fucking
2022.
years ago in the bubble. That's all it would be.
2022 wasn't 5 years ago with the conference finals.
Okay,
That's
that's
3
5
ago.
years ago when they went to the finals. I'm saying.
Yeah, but 2022 they went to the conference finals as well.
Okay.
Yeah, but
years
since
ago.
then, Bam has regressed, though. We're talking about Bam
Yeah.
now. Like,
I do believe that Bam will play better than this. I think this is Bam's worst basketball. And honestly, I expect him to play a lot better, especially in the playoffs, because I've seen that in the past, him get better offensively in the postseason. But this debate, you've turned it into who's kind of more of the number 1. Look, it really comes down
No,
to
who's a
me
better
thinking,
player?
who has the higher ceiling. I think that's Bam. I value that more than Sabonis' floor.
but I mean, that's what I'm
really
saying.
what it goes down
Bam
to for
Adebayo
me.
has been on a team that they have offensive pieces in place and the coaching in place to match those
you
weaknesses.
put them on different teams. The Heat don't go to the finals in 2023. You put Sabonis or you put Bam on the Kings in Sabonis' place. I think they can beat the Warriors in that round 1 series. Very confident.
No, that's
in
a
that.
hypothetical. That's
I
no
look at their
basis.
defense. Bam, it makes a lot of sense because Bam's been a one-man defense for the majority of his career. And what has held back the Kings? Their defense could only be the 15th
Did they
best
lose
in the
that?
NBA.
Did they lose that series versus the Warriors because Sabonis' defense?
I think
No.
Bam offers such a higher floor
Answer
on
the question
defensive
there.
end.
Did they lose
don't
that
think
series?
Sabonis was-
No. They
think
lost
that
that
was the
series
difference,
all in
but-
all because Game 7, Steph Curry tapped into God mode and scored 50.
I do agree. But the point is, you put Bam in that Sacramento defense, I think their floor is high enough to win that series. Because that is someone who can be a one-man defense without a good supporting
So
cast.
the difference between Bam and Sabonis is Bam could win you one extra game in the first round to get you to the second round.
That's not the main point that I'm arguing.
But that's
I'm
what you
saying
just
that
said.
would be
They could beat the
difference.
The whole
Warriors.
That
thing
would
is
be the
that you
difference.
just want
Yes.
your center to
But
be
my
your
argument is
defensive
not
anchor.
a
You rather
hypothetical
that.
they win one more game. My argument is that the fucking ceiling with Sabonis is lower than
You
Bam.
rather
That's
a
the argument.
defensive anchor over a limited offensive.
A limited offensive players produce more on the offensive end in the postseason. So what does that tell you? In the postseason, Bam's been a better offensive player because that's an 100-game sample
I'm
size.
tired of hearing
versus
that
Sabonis'
because
7.
it's solely based off the fact Sabonis has 7 games played
Yeah,
in the playoffs
because,
as a
like
king.
I highlighted before, he's not going to raise your floor to be a consistent playoff team.
It's
just said
because
he's
the
a better
West
floor
is fucking
raiser, though.
stacked.
The East has been okay.
Yeah,
you
they
make
were
a good
the-
point.
thank
You
you.
make a good point. But even when they were a 3 seed, they were a 48-win team. In the Eastern Conference, the 5 seed some years.
And dude, when the
Their
Heat
best years in the Western Conference's worst
Bro,
year.
when the Heat made the finals as the 8th seed 2 years ago, if they were in the West, they're not in the playoffs. You know that, right?
It's true.
In the play-in,
He's right. He's right.
they make the play-in tournament, do they not?
Who did
can
it? What's the
double check,
record?
but-
Let's
That's
check.
a
I'll
good
check.
point.
I'll
They
check.
won
good point.
43 games.
But they were the 8th. They were the 7th. Lost the 7-8 game to the Hawks, and then won versus the Bulls.
I will say we've turned this into a discussion, which is like second.
They
two
would be the
hypotheticals
7th seed in the
back-to-back.
West that year.
Okay,
And
so
they
still
would
would've made the
they
playoffs.
would have played the Lakers in the playoffs.
So that's a hypothetical that wasn't even right.
And who would they have
So they
lost?
would've still been.
Who would they have played to?
Well,
next?
they would be in a play-in.
Who would they have played after that?
Still a playoff team.
They would have played.
You told
if
me they wouldn't make the playoffs.
They would have been the 7th seed. They would have played the Grizzlies because that's the year the Lakers played the Grizzlies. Yeah, I think that's doable. The Grizzlies were very hobbled that year and hurt.
You see my point though. Like the Western Conference and the Kings' best year is pretty weak.
You love Bam.
I'm just being very objective about what I've seen from two of these players.
Lakers
in
did
the
go to
postseason.
WCF that year.
And it's only
Yeah.
been one Sabonis playoff run, but I feel like even still, I can kind of project based off of that one series how his play style isn't as scalable.
Again, but you
as that
keep
defensive
going off
value.
last year's. But I'm talking. All I've talked about is this year. This year, it has not been close.
Well, to be fair to Sabonis, I think
That's
now,
been my whole thing.
moving forward.
I
You can
understand that.
All right,
But
that's
my
it.
whole thing is that this is the worst basketball Bam's played, and it's probably the best time he can play that worst bowl. And my point was, I expect Bam to play better moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah, but
There's
two
a lot
years
of
ago,
different
Sabonis
variables
didn't
right now
shoot
in
well.
Miami, which
He
can hold
didn't.
him back.
This year, Sabonis is shooting
He's
from.
shooting quite well.
That's why I don't
From-
think it's
well,
fair
from
to just
three.
assume because I see the flaws in Sabonis' game, but I also realize that he's been knocking down threes. If he's going to do that in the playoffs,
also-
I
I
don't
think we're
you
just
can
acknowledging the
assume
it's a
concerted
small
effort that he's
sample.
making to fix his weaknesses.
It's a
That's
small
a sample
in
of
terms
70
of a.
attempts, right?
Okay.
That's
We're,
okay.
we're
but that can
35,
vary
40
a lot.
games in, and
That
he's
can
been
vary
an
a lot.
efficient
On
three-point
2.5
shooter.
attempts, it's a very small sample.
Wouldn't
size.
you rather that though?
I like it. It's better than him not taking.
Exactly,
it. He's a better
because
shooter than
Bam's
Bam.
not doing shit
No, Bam
from
has
3-point
not
at
been.
all.
Sabonis is the better shooter, and if he can continue doing that,
He's better
then
everything
the
offensively.
Okay, fair enough. If he can
He's
continue
attempted
doing
87
that,
threes this year.
okay,
That's a
so
lot, though. You know,
it's
I
a
know
good
it's only
amount,
two
but
and a
it
half
can
threes a
vary.
game.
You have an entire second half of the season to go. That can go to 36, 39, 42%.
He's shooting 46%.
Like I'm not
pretty
saying
good.
that he's
But
going to
on
be
2.5
fucking Kyle
attempts-
Korver.
It's pretty variable. That's a high. It's very. It can vary a lot.
Like, let me ask you a
sometimes.
question. Jaren Jackson has been excellent this season. 3-point shooting wise, he's been pretty good. Would you call Jaren Jackson a great 3-point shooter?
He has had seasons in the past,
But for
he's-
his position, you'll take
a
it to
go
the
on.
crib,
Yeah.
correct?
No
That's
doubt.
exactly kind of what we're saying with Sabonis. Not even to that extreme, because Jaren Jackson's a much better 3-point shooter based off volume.
Right.
But just off the sole fact that Jaren can give you that is a huge
I
added
get
plus.
it.
Plus, Jaren's an amazing defender. But now if Bam is going to give you 2 to maybe 3 threes a game, and you can bank on the fact that, hey, he might just make 1. That's better than what he's been giving you. On top of the fact that this year defensively has been his best by far in his career. And with the fact that for his position, he is a fringe elite offensive talent, I'm going to take that. Because he's shown me that he's not only improved at one of his weaknesses, which you could argue his biggest weakness, forget about the shooting, was his defense. That's his biggest weakness, and it's improved this year.
And he's shooting 47% from mid-range, too.
Everything about his game this year has improved.
He's just leveled up, John. Don't get caught at the station with the train leaves.
I respect
Don't get
Bam.
caught, man.
I've always respected Bam. The truth of the matter is,
Overrated.
this season, Bam has not been good for his standard.
If Bam was shooting 46% from 3 on 2.5%,
You'd be fucking creaming.
2.5 attempts per game,
similar
you wouldn't
to
be
Mobley.
underselling
You'd
it
be
like
fucking
this.
joking it. You'd be fucking
it's a
thrilled.
note
You'd be
to
telling him to run a pin down for Bam. Come off the
Oh,
screen and
God,
pop it.
literally.
You're
It's a note
underselling
to
what
make.
Sabonis is doing right
Jaren's
now.
also a player who takes double the volume, and he's happy.
I agree.
does.
I agree.
I think that's
It was more so of a sentiment.
I understand that. I don't think that's a perfect one-on-one example.
I agree.
And what I really want to highlight here, and I think we clearly value different things. If you guys are going to die on this hill, that Sabonis is the better player. What's the most
year.
important?
He's a better player.
This year.
Wait, hold on. You just said
We
that.
agree on that.
Yes.
But overall, who do you think is the better player? If we kind of
now,
use
it's
this year
Sabonis
with
is
the
better.
other 4 years, all
See.
5 of these years into one.
Well, the last 2 years, Sabonis has
Because
been better.
the playoffs to me matter more in the regular season, right? We haven't seen Sabonis this year in the playoffs to really confirm what you're saying is totally true.
Okay.
And so if you use all 5 of these years, who do you think's the better player? And what I want to know after that is, what do you value most in the center? Because that's going to tell me a lot here.
I think as a center, it just depends on your roster construction. You know, I think Sabonis leveling up his 3-point shooting is a big deal. And I think you're really underselling it. 46% from
2.5 attempts.
Yeah, if Bam was doing that, you'd be milking it like hell. If roles were reversed and Sabonis was still struggling from 3 and Bam was taking 40 was making 46% on his threes,
Mobley's
stop
taking
playing.
2 threes a game. I'm not milking
Mobley's
that.
moving the fuck out of me with those.
yeah,
Two and a half. You're acting
That's
like
not
2.5
moving you.
0.8, bro.
I note it. It's not, to me, the biggest development of
Also, what do you expect? Do you want Sabonis to just start taking 5 threes a game? Just to fit your idea of what you want him to be as a 3-point
saying
shooter?
that necessarily,
Sabonis,
but-
this is his role in the Kings offense. He's a bruiser, he gets post-ups, he rolls to the basket, and he finishes around the rim. He has improved his 3-point shooting because he understands that players sag off of him in that area, and
getting a
he
lot of
has
open
he has
passing
to
shoot
be able to make defenses pay when they do that. Those are where those 2.5 attempts come from, because 2 to 3 times a game, defenses do that, and he's making them pay. He's basically making 1 of every 2 threes.
Especially now in these dribble handoff situations, which they call him a dribble handoff merchant. In these scenarios now you're forcing the big to come up. And now that makes it a little bit easier for whoever's catching this pass or this dump off from Sabonis. Now they got an easier attack at the rim.
The
We're on
big
different
thing,
wavelengths
the big
because-
thing with the Kings this year was how would the spacing fit with DeMar DeRozan coming, because they don't have a lot of 3-point shooters. Sabonis took that opportunity to be a positive in that area. The reason why we're not saying the spacing is complete trash is because Sabonis has leveled up as a floor spacer this year. And now on those pick and pops, he can now be a pick and pop threat.
Right.
John, to answer your question, I still think as a big man, the number one thing I want to have, I want you to be an elite defender. Like, I think to be the backbone of a defense, I feel like
More
regardless of championship teams, like you go down the line, you're going to need an elite big man. You're going to need a rim protector. It's hard to find a not. But also, if you're a really good offensive player and a plus defensive player, I'll take that over an elite offensive player and a nothing on defense. Excuse me, elite defensive
around.
big
Right.
and nothing on offense. Because right now, Bam's not giving you much on offense. He's not efficient anywhere. I know he's a
Right.
good playmaker, so you can give him that. But goddamn, it's not like Bam's out there averaging 25 a game on efficient shooting, right? Like he has been one of the most efficient players in the NBA. This is a big man who is like it was shooting like around 40-some%.
I think Bam needs a true table setter to help him get back to that level, which he was at offensively. Because the Heat don't have that. Hero's been wonderful, but he's still more of a scorer naturally.
Definitely.
And I believe part of what helped him that 2020 run is when you had Goran Dragic, who really kind of was that. And I do believe that Sabonis this year, no one's going to deny. He's been clearly the better player. But what I really want to highlight here with this 3-point shooting is that when you take a sample size 2.5 attempts, 80 attempts is a lot. But over the course of an 82-game season, that is subject to change once you get a higher and more large sample size. That can easily vary. And so I'm not going to jump the gun and say Sabonis is a high-level shooter until I have a full sample, a full 82-game season.
You could
And
say
even then, all
He's a good
lots more
3-point
than the
shooter.
season.
This year, he's a good.
I think he's capable, and he's shown that he can and should take more. But I'm not saying necessarily that I want Sabonis to take 5 threes. If he can take 5 and make him at a consistent clip, it adds another layer to your offense.
I actually think that this is where I end up the conversation. I think that moving forward, we're going to see what Bam Adebayo is truly made of. Because you talk about how important he was to the Heat's runs, and I'm not saying he wasn't important, but when you have a player that elevated his game in the manner that Jimmy Butler elevated his game, it makes everybody around him look better. when Jimmy Butler is gone from the Heat, which might happen pretty soon, and Bam Adebayo has to take the load of being the second best player because Tyler Herro's been their best player this year. Let's just make that clear. So he's actually their second. Bam Adebayo is their second best player on the team
I think it's
this
a 1A,
year.
1B, but yeah.
Okay,
you're right.
but Tyler Herro's, I think, just what he's
having
done
an
for them.
amazing
Bam's
season.
the 1B.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hero's been having a wonderful
crying.
season.
But Bam,
I mean, I think
we're
that's a lot
about
about
we're
Hero,
about to
too.
see what Bam can be as the
25,
true
5 and
second
5.
best player on a team when his teammate is not elevating to God levels in the playoffs.
Right. Hero's also having a wonderful season.
He is. I'm not
So
saying he's
25,
not.
5 and 5, pretty solid efficiency. So
All-star. Should be. Shout out to Doug Christie, by the way.
Yo, that bubble East was weak, by the way.
with the Celtics, a weak team.
Yeah.
Kind of fake.
I mean,
Kemba Walker's like 22-year-old Jason
The
Tatum.
bubble East was week.
yeah,
Who
you
did
can
they
say
play? The
that.
Bucks in the second round. The first round was who?
I'll tell you this: in the
An
finals,
injured Bucks team, if I'm not mistaken, either.
That Celtics
Bam
roster
got
was
off to a
low-key
great start in
nasty.
the finals, then got hurt in the second quarter of Game 1 or the end of the first quarter, and we never got to see him really healthy go up against AD because he was hobbled the
He
entire
was.
rest of the
He
way.
was.
And
Yeah,
then
that-
That
the
shit
other
only
time
went
we
six.
saw him-
That shit only went 6. Apologize, John.
The other time we saw him in the finals, he had to guard Nikola Jokic really with no help on island. So I feel like he's been given like some impossible tasks, and for the majority of the way, he's overachieved. And Jimmy Butler's been one of the biggest playoff risers of this generation, but Bam has been a playoff riser as well on the offensive end. And I truly believe that he can play at a higher level, and he can cut and kind of close that gap between him and a guy like Sabonis, who's a Western Conference All-Star. If you give him a point guard who can kind of set the table and relieve that load for Bam to be the point forward that he was, because right now he hasn't had the same confidence that he did. And honestly, I think he needs to kind of just get back at that same mental space he was at 5 years ago in 2020.
That
a while
Celtics
ago.
team was fucking mid, bro. You got 21-year-old Tatum,
You had
23-year-old
Tatum, Brown,
JB,
and Gordon Hayward.
Gordon Hayward, who played 5 games in the playoffs.
Okay,
You
but
had
he
Daniel
played in that
Tice.
series versus the Heat.
You had Brad Wanamaker. You had Grant Williams. You had
Check the
22-year-old
5
Rob.
games Hayward played because he was still an important part of that team and he played pretty well.
And
Would
the
you say
5
Bam
games
was
he
the second
played,
best player on that team, though?
he averaged
Oh, yeah,
11
easily.
points, brother.
Goran
But
Dragic.
Easily.
before the NBA Finals, Goran Dragic, he was
playing awesome.
averaging more points than Jimmy Butler.
That's true.
Gordon Hayward
was
played
the third
5
best
games in the playoffs. He averaged 11 points on
I know, but his playmaking was
47%
great.
EFG.
His playmaking was great, and he kind of was
He averaged
a
2.8
super-
assists.
He was like a souped-up glue guy.
Also, that series versus the Lakers went 6 games off the sole fact that one, Jimmy
did
went
he do?
Super Saiyan,
Yeah.
and 2, Danny Green missed a wide open 3.
Teams with shots.
Wide open.
Yeah.
Like,
Top
I don't know.
key.
Like, Bam is elevated, but I think when we look at the Heat, like, what is the underlying statement that we come away from those Heat teams? Jimmy Butler didn't have enough help.
Gordon Hayward averaged 10 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists on 27% shooting from 3, 40% from the field against Miami.
Okay.
It's a weak East.
It was not a
credit
great
to
team.
them.
Shout out
Bam
to
guard.
Brad. Shout out to Brad.
Yeah, Bam
you know what I
guard,
mean?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Bam Chan. Talking
In that
about
in-between
small
space.
sample sizes, we talked about Sabonis. We're going to talk about another small sample size. January Jalen Green. Last year it was April Jalen Green. This year
it was
is
March.
It
It was March.
March. Okay,
Please.
sorry. March
Please.
Jalen Green. This year it's January Jalen Green. And let's talk about it. The Rockets are 26-12, second in the East, and they have leveled up again because Jalen Green is on a complete heater. You can speak on it, Drew. The Rockets are playing some really good basketball, and Jalen Green is probably at the forefront of that right
When
now.
Jalen Green is on, he's one of the most entertaining players in basketball. And I'd argue he's one of the most dominant players in basketball as well. 21 attempts in the month of January. Oh, I said what I said. In the month of January, 21 attempts, 51% from the field, 10 attempts from 3, 46% from 3. He's averaging 30. He has been a menace. Now, what do we always say when we talk about the Rockets? They just need Jalen Green to be a consistent scoring option for them. And they're still playing winning basketball with an inconsistent number 1 scorer, whether that's Sengun, whether that is Jalen Green. I'll throw Fred VanVleet into this conversation as well. The one thing that we constantly ask for them is to have consistent offense, which they lack. Their defense is incredible. One of the main reasons why they've been one of the stars of this season. But we've been waiting and asking Jalen Green to play consistent basketball. And we see when he's playing consistent basketball, they can beat the best teams in the league. And the Memphis Grizzlies, who have been one of the most impressive teams in basketball this season, they're top 5 in offense, they're top 6 in defense. They're literally 6. It's unfortunate because they'd be a top 5 and 5 for both offense and defense. But regardless, you have moments like yesterday where Jalen Green can take over offensively and he can will you to winning a game. And being as clutch as he was, or early in the season, we saw how clutch he was, really had lost it in that October, November, even December. Just inconsistent shooting the basketball, scoring the basketball as a whole. But when you have him playing the way that he's playing right now, the Rockets are legitimate threats. They are a legitimate threat to any team because what you can have consistent is defense. And defense can transfer over into the playoffs. But if you don't have the faith that you have a number one scoring option, then we really don't have a conversation for talking about them as a legitimate team. But if JG can play this consistently, the Rockets are legit. Now, of course, I'm not going to be blindly, Jalen Green, we're here. I'm always going to be a fan. I'm a fan of Jalen Green. I love watching him play. But we're seeing how great the Rockets can be when Jalen Green's on. And hopefully we can just see it carry over for the rest of the season.
That's the biggest question.
I'm not saying average 30 either.
No, of course
I'm not saying that.
I mean, realistically, he's probably not going to average 30 on
Give me
this
25
efficiency.
on 48% from the field. That's all I ask.
What the Rockets desperately need is some version of this. That's why they've been in conversations with Jimmy Butler, or maybe not real ones, but, leaked ones that we make up. Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. They desperately need a consistent number one scorer. This defense is all world. One of the best defense, not the best defense. Probably second best because OKC is just historical right now. But this defense is all world. We know that's Ime's strong suit. We know they have the personnel for it. Amen Thompson himself has been playing out of his mind this season. And it feels like every day you look up and, oh shit, Amen dropped fucking 21, 15 and 5 stocks today. Like he's just, every game feels like he's doing something special. But it really does feel like the ceiling of this team, and I don't even know if there's a real ceiling because they're so young. And going into the playoffs, I think right now, for example, they're the 2 seed.
Ceiling.
Yeah, for sure. I'm saying going into the playoffs, they're the 2 seed right now. I think as it currently stands, they'd face the Timberwolves, for example. Well, the Wolves, who have not had a great regular season, I think they'll be pretty split on like who takes who. I think a majority of people might even take the Timberwolves just because they trust them more. You got Anthony Edwards, who's a proven playoff performer. But what they really need is that scorer. They need somebody who, what Jalen Green is doing, but just more consistency over an 82-game sample size. Because we saw last season in March, as Drew mentioned, and what he's doing now. He has these stretches where he is dominant. He has these stretches where he could be a 40+% shooter, a 50% field goal shooter, 3-point shooter, I meant 40%, 50% from the field. He could be a really efficient player, but he also has stretches where it's like, holy shit, man, this dude is averaging 18 points a game on under 40%. And it gets nasty because what Jalen Green, he is really there's not a lot of, I think he's probably like the only player who gets real minutes on that team that you look at a defensive aspect and be like, he probably doesn't fit with what the rest of this group does.
Jalen Green, you're saying?
Yes, Jalen Green, exactly.
He's been a pretty positive defender this season.
I don't think he's not a bad defender, and also when you have all the defensive talent around you, it definitely helps.
They kind of gloss over it, but I'm not going to call him a liability.
No, but
far from.
Definitely not, but he is. I think Fred would get picked on because of his size, and Jalen Green would get picked on because he is the weakest out of the defenders
of them,
they do
I
have.
agree.
Not saying, of course, you have some all-world defenders.
Best point guard defenders.
He is, just smaller, of course. You get switched on him. A guy's like 6'8". He could do some more damage. But what they really need, shout out to Steph. What they really need is someone who could be a consistent scorer for them. And this team's already so ahead of pace, right? I didn't any world. I thought they were going to break out this year. I thought the Rockets were going to break out, be a top 6 seed. Did not think they're going to be a number 2 seed. Did not think they were going to be one of the best teams in basketball. But they would go really as far, number 1, their defense, but number 2, what version of Jalen Green is going to show up in the playoffs?
Are you buying
If you
this?
get a stretch where Jalen Green does this in a 7-game series, and 5 out of the 7 games he's efficient, it's like, holy shit, this team could win a playoff series. But you could also get the opposite of that, where it gets really ugly. This team could get bounced in 5 games.
John, just walk with me real quick. All right? Because he's asking you the question, are you buying it?
Are you?
Now, I know your answer already. I know you've been very vocal about...
I don't know.
Are you going to surprise me right now?
I'll be honest with you. Jalen Green this year has made incremental improvement in his game. This is the first time in his career that there have been 2 variables since he was drafted because he has all the physical traits. The first variable was his 3-point shooting because he has had moments where he's a high-level 3-point shooter and his ceiling is 28+ points per game on respectable efficiency, like pretty solid enough where he can be a number 1 scorer. And this is a playoff team where Rockets have been a top 3 defense this year. They're top 10 last year. The foundation is there that they'll win at least 45 games with that floor, that Ime Udoka, and those supporting pieces like Amon and Tar have been basically stars in their roles all year long. Amon, not Amon, not right now. Jalen Green, on the other hand, while 3-point shooting's been a big X factor, he was 32% in the year of 2024. He's been 40% in the 7 games since. He has started to figure out the second X factor and the second swing skill in his game, which is finishing.
Yep.
Because he has every physical trait. He has an insane leaping ability. He has a lot of the, the upside kind of that you would look for in the mold of a high-level scoring guard. This year is the first time in his career that he's gone above the threshold of 65%. He's even climbed up to 70% at the rim, to where he's starting to slow down a little bit more. And he being in year 4, it's finally a time where he's kind of been able to, gain that veteran savvy to play a little more control. Because sometimes when a player only plays at one speed, he's predictable, and now all of a sudden it's a lot more easy to guard because a guy like De'Aaron Fox, what makes him so fast is his deceleration ability. So I think we should have expected Jalen Green to make this step forward with more time and reps, because the benefit of being in Houston is that they've been very patient with him. So I'll say that this has been an incremental improvement, and it's a step in the right direction for him being a true starter on a real playoff team. The question is simply going to come down to how well he can sustain this. And I think compared to last year, he is one step closer to being a more established on-ball creator. So I think I'm pretty lukewarm right now, and I was very high on Jalen Green pre-draft. I made constant videos about him in his rookie season because we know the highs. It's just a matter of managing the lows. And for the most part, he's been able to do that this year. At least he's been able to get kind of into a more baseline level where it's not as dramatic, those mountaintops and those lows. So I think we're getting there. No,
he's had 2 good months. October, January now. All the areas between there, don't really talk about it.
No, that November, December's nasty.
I just
that
feel
October
like
month is like
Yeah.
7 games.
Literally.
I just feel like when I watch Jalen Green and watch his bad games and his good games, I don't really feel like there's much of a difference with the shot diet that he has. It's the same shots, and he just happens to make them in some stretches. But he goes on these bizarre cold streaks that really brings down the entire team. And then it feels like he's just a dark cloud when that happens, and you're just like, what the hell? Because really, there's no reason why he shouldn't be performing at a very high level. Like, there's no reason why he shouldn't be averaging 24 on good efficiency. Like, the shots are there for him to be had.
Every tool. He has every tool.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's got a bag, he can shoot, he can get to the rim. He is one of the most athletic players in the league.
He is.
He's got it all.
I will say one more thing. Finishing's been a step forward. 3-point shooting is the biggest question, but one more thing, which I made the De'Aaron Fox comparison before, and that's, an all-star guard. He is shooting like 30% for mid-range, and his floater game is something that we've been waiting on as well. If he can add that into his bag, he doesn't have to be a 37% 3-point shooter. He just has to be someone that can score in the in-between space. If he does one of those two things at a commendable level, you're talking about someone who can get to that 24-point-per-game mark.
Jalen Green's a legitimate, I would say he's a great catch-and-shoot 3-point shooter. It's just the fact that he's going to have the ball in his hands. He's going to have to create for him. He hasn't been a consistent pull-up 3-point shooter. That's one thing when you see him get on these hot streaks. Joel, like you mentioned, similar shots. It's just when he gets hot, they're going in. But then the thing is, he has so much volume that when they're going in, now we're looking at a dominant force. I just want to see it consistently. If he closes the season playing just a notch below this, we're talking about a top 50 player easy. Maybe even top 40.
Better than Bam?
I can't go that far.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Definitely not going that far.
Plays at this level.
Well, yeah. I mean, this
Just
7-game stretch
just a notch low. Like he mentioned, 25% on good efficiency. You're on one of the best teams in the league.
That's what it is. It's the efficiency.
He's a good defender. I'm not going to slide him. I think he's a good defender. Is he on the level of the Freds, the Taris, the Amen? Obviously not. And like what you were saying, your sentiment's correct. He's the odd man out, but he's still a good defender in his own right. It's the inconsistency as a scorer, which is his role. But when we see him play the way that he's played over these last few stretches, this last stretch of games, this is where the fans start to get excited and really start to go back on the idea of Jalen Green, because the idea gets turned into a reality.
I will say that the expectations on Jalen Green have been sky high since the time he was drafted. And that expectation of him sustaining this is just unreasonable. I feel like if he can get to that point, which Joel highlighted, which was 24 points a game, on league average efficiency, we're talking like 58% true shooting, 35% from three, that's manageable. Even at that point, I don't think it's really fair to put him in a top 50 discussion because there's so many other things, especially in the playmaking department, that I think is what puts you and catapults you into that discussion. And until he shows that in the future, which on this Rocket team, they don't necessarily have to ask him to do that.
He's only averaging 2 assists.
They
you
have
think he's-
Freddie,
but
they
hey,
have Şengün, they have Ayman.
Do you think he's a bad playmaker?
His vision is definitely something that's concerning. I don't think he's ever going to be someone who averages more than 4.5
I don't
assists.
think he's a bad passer, though. I just think that he's not actively looking it out, which we can call it a knock.
He's hardwired to be a scorer.
I don't think being a good playmaker just means being able to throw a good pass.
I don't disagree.
It's being able to consistently break down on defense. And I don't know if he'll ever be someone that...
I don't think he does that as like a good level
His
at
ceiling
all.
to me is Zach LaVine, and even then, I think Zach LaVine has had a higher feel for the game.
Hey.
And I don't really know...
You got me to Zach LaVine. I'm moved.
It'd be a great win for the Rockets, obviously. With
That's
the
your most
contract they
underrated
gave him.
player in the league.
Yeah, well, he's having
He's
a
playing
fantastic
really
year.
well.
He's
Yeah.
having a fantastic
He's
year.
playing-
He's a
he's playing-
fucking
he
fiend.
can-
He's
If he gets
basically
that
the
level, that's
7-game
the
fucking
absolute
sample
highest
Jalen
the whole
Green's
year.
doing.
Right.
Yeah, he's doing it to
Right.
for
But
40
Zach
games.
LaVine's feel for the game is what gives him that ability to still be a playmaker.
He's an older player too. He's like, late
but he
20s
always
in the
kind of
league.
had that earlier in Chicago to where it felt a little bit different.
It's
I
just
think
what would happen if Zach LaVine was healthy?
Now, John, let me ask you something. How high are you on the Cavaliers this year? I know I'm switching topics, but how high are you on them this year?
high enough to think they can compete with the Celtics in a good competitive.
Do you think they
game.
could beat them? Because the Celtics look vulnerable as ever right now.
Oh, to answer that question, I think the answer is no until they prove it. But I think they can push them to a 6-game or a 7-game series. But what it really comes down to for me with this Cavalier team is being able to see it with your own two eyes. This year they're playing at the pace of a 71-win team, and it's the most competition Boston has. But you can't deny or overlook the type of run the Celtics had, which I think most people try to dismiss. It was one of the most easy cruises to an NBA championship we have seen. They won 16 games. They lost 4. Even in the super tight contest, they had control at all times. To me, in the Eastern Conference, right now it's the Cavaliers at number 1 because they have had a incredible start to the year. It's even been historic, 33-5. But I still believe that this Celtic team has kind of earned the ability after the last 5 years
To coast.
and this playoff,
Yeah.
this last playoff, to simply cruise through because their bench is one of the most complete with Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and Al Horford at the age of 37,
so good,
38,
man.
still playing at that quality
Is he getting
level.
his number retired?
He should, bro.
So
Can I ask you a question, though? You don't think there's a difference in the Cavaliers' offense this year going up against the Celtics where Jared Allen and Evan Mobley this season have shown offensively they can be uber essential to what they're trying to do to be successful to ultimately win a game. For example, OKC, they have a depth issue while Chet has been out. It's Isaiah Hartenstein, and once you get to the bench, that's where you can take advantage. We saw Jared Allen and Evan Mobley really leave their mark on that game and were one of the main reasons why they were able to come away with the W. Going up against the Boston Celtics, if KP's is banged up in any fashion, but let's live in a perfect world where KP's healthy, Al Horford's healthy. That's still strong depth. But regardless, still, with the way that Jared and Evan Mobley have been playing, I think that them having that interior presence on the offensive side, it bodes a lot better to these other teams, other than OKC with a healthy Chet Holmgren, that it's not the craziest thing to see them win that series for the reason that their defense is incredible, but this offense has been the best in the Donovan Mitchell tenure with the Cavs.
They didn't have Jared Allen against them
for
last
sure.
year. And he would have made an impact, and Donovan Mitchell was on a heater.
and he got hurt.
I think where I'm at with the Celtics is I think they've been a little bit disappointing. I think they're clearly coasting, though, right now. They're not really taking the regular season serious at all. And they're getting good looks. They're just not hitting them. I feel like, looking back on it now, even though you can argue the numbers and the efficiency for Jaylen Brown were a little bit better than Tatum's, Tatum just dictates the game. And he should have been the ECF MVP. He should have been the Finals MVP.
That I disagree with wholeheartedly.
And Jason Tatum this year has taken a major leap in his game when
No doubt.
Jaylen Brown has kind of been like, we kind of want to see more from you. Like
He's been cruising
You're
much.
coming off of winning Finals MVP, and I mean, right now people wanted to have arguments about Tatum and Brown. We knew it was never really close. Tatum was by far a better player, but like, it's the gap right now is massive. Like Tatum is clearly their best player, and Jalen Brown has kind of been a little bit underwhelming. I think the difference with why, even with the Celtics coaching, I feel very confident in Boston is just the improvement that Tatum has in his isolation game. Like, Tatum is one of the very best isolation players in the league.
Isolation player.
Yes, the numbers back it up. Like, we always knew that he was capable of doing that. He's capable of getting to the basket and hitting mid-range shots and hitting three-point shots.
He was letting me down for a little while.
But right now, this is the best version of Jason Tatum. And if we get the best version of Jason Tatum with the roster they still have, the only thing that can stop them from getting back to the finals is just three-point volatility. And Mazzulla was asked about it the other day about, the results for the three-point shooting not being there because there's a stat called expected three-point percentage. And Joe Mazzulla basically said that, they're getting good looks still. They're just not making the shots, but the process is still very sound, and we might get sometime soon the Celtics just go on a barrage against some sorry, helpless team. But, I think the Celtics, they have everything working in their favor, and even though the Cavaliers can challenge them, it's just very hard to envision somebody beating Boston still.
Yeah, right. I think, listen, if you want to pick Cleveland, if you think Cleveland has a shot, I think absolutely they deserve the respect. You go on a 71-win pace. I think you deserve whatever you want to say about them. They could go to the finals. They could win the finals. They've been playing so damn good this regular season. I think they've earned that. Two things. I think, one, I do think Boston is coasting, and I think that's a little worrisome. I just feel like, number one, we haven't had a repeat champion since the Golden State Warriors, right? And I feel like more often than not, when we have a team win the finals, we give them a lot of leeway, deservedly so. But we did the same thing with Denver last season, where it's like, yeah, they're coasting a little bit, even though they finished as, top 3 seed, whatever. They came up short in the playoffs. Of course, Jamal Murray didn't play to his level. He got banged up. But that's part of winning a finals. When you win a finals, of course, number one, the Celtics got lucky. They, had a bunch of injuries and whatnot. But Jalen Brown was playing his best basketball, right? He won ECF MVP. He won Finals MVP regardless of who you think deserved it. He was playing his best basketball at the time. You had Porzingis in that game one go crazy. You had Al Horford hit 7 threes or whatever it was against the Pacers. You're going to have moments where players play up and above expectation. Yep. That doesn't happen every playoff run. Like Jamal Murray played below expectation where the year prior he played above. So you need everything to go right to win a championship. I think my biggest concern with Boston right now is Jalen Brown can't shoot the damn ball.
It's killing me.
He's shooting under 32%. It's the worst of his career right now. He's gotten so damn big and so strong that you worry about. You always say you get in the weight room, you get these muscles, and you lose the shot because he's still such a good defender and he can get downhill and everything. But he has been so inefficient as a shooter that, goddamn, maybe last season when the Warriors said, yeah, let's leave him open, they were just a year too early because last year he was at least efficient. But Boston, really, the last 13 games, they're 7-6. Since December 19th, they have 6 games shooting under 30% from 3. For context, in the first 15 games of the season, that happened just one time. And the fourth quarter has really been the biggest issue for this team because when you look on the season, even in these last 13 games, they're top 7 defense, top 7 offense. It's not like, all of a sudden they can't defend or they can't score. It's really been these fourth quarters in their wins. The 8 wins, they're shooting 53% from the field and 43% from 3 in the fourth quarter. And their 7 losses, they're shooting 37% from the field and 22% from 3. So they've had some really, really cold streaks, and I'm tuned into every Celtics game. They a lot of times miss open looks like Derek White and Porzingis, Jalen Brown, of course, where they're shots that they normally make and they're just missing right now. So, on one hand, everything has come back to the mean, and you got to hope that it goes back to, the league average 36-37% around what they were last year. I think they were at 38 last year. But yeah, I do worry a little bit about coasting just because there's a reason why top 2 seeds in the NBA 99% of the time win the championship. Regardless of what you think about the regular season and load management, the regular season matters. History has told us if you are a good regular season team, you have an infinitely higher chance to win a championship than a team that takes it as a joke and sits everyone out and says, oh, we'll be a 6 seed and we'll just try to fight our way in. You got to be good in the regular season. Boston's still the number 2 seed, right? They're 5 games back. They're still on pace for 50-plus wins. They're going to be fine there. But yeah, they have more competition this year. Cleveland is a really good team. The double big lineup is going to present them some challenges. Having Garland, Donovan Mitchell, of course, to get you buckets. I think the really question is, who's that wing defender? Because are you going to put Evan Mobley on Jason Tatum? He's going to go and guard the perimeter, and Jason Tatum runs everything, so you can have switches. It's going to be a really fun matchup and a really good matchup.
I feel like they got a lot of players, the Cavs do, to defend. Dean Wade might be like one of the X factors in that series. I think, his size. But then you have Karis LeVert, who's 6'6", who can defend well. Max Strus, he's a serviceable defender. I think you put Evan Mobley on one of Tatum or Brown, and you feel comfortable with that matchup the entirety of the series. And then you have Isaac Okoro. Like, they have 3 to 4 players who can guard up. And, you're not going to shut these players down, but they're going to put in a lot of effort defensively.
I will say, and I especially have been one of these people that have tend to overlook those role players. I do believe a guy like Karis LeVert can hang with Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's going to win that matchup because he's a better player, of course, but we have seen this year all of those wing players in Cleveland step up to collectively kind of fix that small forward hole you could say they've had in past years. And I will say one thing. The Cavaliers last year, I think, still are missing an extra gear to them offensively, which they've gained this year, and I think that propels them to competing with the Celtics. But what it really does go back to is Kristaps Porzingis missing the entire series, and as well as the following series versus the Pacers. Even if the Cavaliers are banged up in that series, so was Boston. And when you look at that high-end outcome, I think that could be a fantastic 7-game series if we get in the conference finals. But there's always going to be that looming question of how high and how far can Donovan Mitchell take you as that number 1? Because Evan Mobley this year started to transcend into that number 2. The question is really him in that series. If he has a superb series where offensively he's playing better than he ever has in his career, the Cavaliers do have a chance to win. My question is whether or not that will be this season, which is what still makes me favor that Celtic team when you have Jason Tatum as the best player. And then we know Jaylen Brown can still go mano a mano with a guy like Donovan Mitchell and be just as good because of that high-end production he's given you in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Mitchell's taken a step back this year offensively, right?
Just from
let's say from a production standpoint, he's taken a step back. But I think that's planned, right? I don't think that's just some coincidence. They have the best record, second best record in basketball.
I'm sure he's not mad.
5 games above the Celtics right now. Keep doing what you're doing. But I agree, John, because once it comes to the playoffs, it's all right, yeah, I've been chilling, averaging 22, but in the playoffs, it's the conference finals against Boston. All right, I got to average close to 30. I can't just assume that I've been spreading the wealth this regular season, everyone's getting their shot, but at sometimes superstars got to be superstars.
I don't want to see them change their game too much come postseason, though. Because if you come out here and you win 65-plus games, clearly something you were doing was right. Play that same brand of offense. If Donovan Mitchell averages 22 to 24 in a series,
you think they can win the finals if he averages 22 to 24?
I don't know.
He needs to average 28 a game.
That's what I'm saying.
See, but the thing is, when in this season so far, we've seen the core 4 all play at an elite level for them. For their standard of basketball, they've all played at an elite level. I guess maybe outside of Donovan Mitchell, but even still, you look at Garland, what he's been able to do, especially closing out games, but really on the defensive side of the ball and what he means to that perimeter defense. He's been excellent in his role, really efficient as well. Evan Mobley, the defensive anchor that he is, but really what he's been able to be, handling the basketball as a roller, finishing near the rim, being able to stretch a little bit more, and then Jared Allen, his presence near the rim on both sides of the ball. The fact that we're watching all 4 of these players coexist so perfectly together on a court, I'm not trying to see, come playoff time at least, things change that drastically, because you want to at least show the trust and confidence in these in these players for this team. The idea is that this core 4, God willing, is able to stay healthy, and they're able to be on this team together for years. If you win 65-plus games, this is a core that I want to run for multiple seasons. Of course, it is indicative of what happens in the playoffs, but they've shown me nothing for me not to trust that this can translate to the playoffs, because defensively, they're so versatile, and then offensively, they have so many different facets, so many different ways that they can beat you.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, because you win 65 games, don't change what you're doing. I think it's just, when we're talking about the highest level, you're going against Boston, you're trying to win a finals, something naturally has to change. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Donovan has had to play at an even more consistent level, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, if he did what he did against Boston last year, they'll be all right.
No, facts. I agree with that.
John had to go because he's going to his men leagues game.
Shout out to John.
Yeah, shout out to John. He came last minute notice.
Fucking
Drove all
legend.
the way here.
Love you, John.
So we could record all that content. And we only have one topic left on the show. And it's talking about the Vikings and Rams game. Was not expecting this game to go the way that it went. The Rams dominated the Vikings. They beat them 27-9. Disappointing end for the Vikings season. Sam Darnold did not play well. I think we can start there. He was supposed to show the entire world what he's made of.
He was supposed to outplay Matthew Stafford.
He was supposed to do that. Darnold Bucks, he didn't play well. He was more like Darnold Pennies out there. I call him.
They call him Darnold Bucks.
I call him
Bucks?
Darnold Bucks.
I've never heard
never
you
called him
once
that.
ever
I
say
used to
that.
when he was on the Jets, but I haven't because he wasn't on the Jets.
I'm going through your old
Darnold Bucks. Darnold Bucks, baby. No, but listen, he didn't play well. He took 9 sacks. He had an interception. Looking back at all the sacks that happened, I think more than half of them were not his fault. I thought the Rams defensive line dominated up front with their stunts and their pressure packages. They really confused the Vikings offensive line. Oftentimes, you look at these numbers and it says, over 13 of Darnold's 24 pressures were over 2.5 seconds, which means he was holding on to the ball. Now, sometimes you can hold on to the ball because you're not trusting a throw and you're passing up open things. That's not what I felt like Darnold was doing. I felt like he was holding on to the ball because nothing came open right away, and he was trying to maneuver and find other avenues, and the Rams just suffocated their offense. As bad of a performance as this was from Sam Darnold, we probably know that it's going to cost him some money. I thought this was equally as bad of a performance by KOC. When I look at the Lions game, I thought there were things to be had that Darnold clearly missed. Definitely. It was on him. I watched this game and I say, wow, KOC didn't have a better plan. Justin Jefferson, he didn't find ways to get him open. Jordan Addison wasn't holding up to his bill. Darnold did not play well, but I feel like the entire Vikings offense as a whole just fell flat completely.
I couldn't find any Darnold Bucks, by the way. I didn't look through all of it.
Sorry.
Real quick, couldn't find it.
I don't disagree with some of the things you were saying. I agree with that. Not all sacks are created equal. Understanding that this was a dominant performance by the Los Angeles Rams. I spoke about it when I believed that the Rams were going to win this game, that the defensive line would make their impact felt on this one. This offensive line for at least the interior of the Vikings was a weakness, and we saw the Rams fully exploit that. Now, do I think this performance by Sam Darnold was similar to that of the Lions? No, I don't think so. But I genuinely still believe that Sam Darnold didn't perform well last night. There were moments where even in the like I said, not all sacks are created equal. But even when we were watching it back before we decided to sit down and hit record, there's moments where I think you're just trying to do too much. Hit the guy right over the middle of the field that's closer to you. Hit the check down. That one play that stands out to me more than anyone, more than anything, is that you have Aaron Jones in the flat. You have him as your check down option. He's by himself, nobody near him. I'm pre-Sam decision. I'm seeing Aaron Jones on. I'm like, okay, this was the game. This was the play. This was the design. Just give it to Aaron Jones. He's going to get some chunk yardage after this. He doesn't look his way. I think that's kind of my issue more so with Sam, because last week versus the Lions, both fourth down situations, you have Jordan Addison wide open. One, you don't look his way. The second one, you look his way, you're hesitant. That's what was killing me. And then in this game, I felt as if he didn't trust himself. I do believe that the Rams got to him and they definitely made him uncomfortable. But there were also moments where Sam just did not look like the Sam that we saw many, many weeks before that. And again, this is a high leverage situation. This is a big moment. He failed another test. The two most important tests he did fail. I do think it's an unfortunate situation, but I'm done talking about Sam Darnold. It's time to praise the Los Angeles Rams. What they were able to do defensively was far more impressive than any offensive performance that I've seen out of them for the last few weeks. And even in this game, I think offensively, they came out here and they looked pretty untouchable in the first two drives. Matthew Stafford was letting balls go over the middle of the field. The touch, the finesse that he has, that beautiful play that he's going and rolling to his weak side. He goes cross body, throws it to Kyron Williams for the touchdown. I just think that they were clicking. It just helped that we just saw this defense take over this game. And even in times where we saw the offense kind of stall out in late situations, penalties kind of kill them, the defense was able to get the ball right back to them and put them in position to to put points onto the board. The defense for the Rams has been the game changer for them over these last few weeks. And it's one of the main reasons why people should stop sleeping on the Rams and the possibility of them upsetting the Philadelphia Eagles next week. The Eagles are a perfect team, in my opinion. I think they have legitimately everything. But the one thing that I will say, and I will always give credit to the Rams, one, their defense has been drastically different than in years past, but the offense is not something that you sleep on. You don't sleep on Matthew Stafford. You don't sleep on Kyron Puka Nacua. And even in a game like yesterday where the offense wasn't the dominating part, when they needed to execute, they executed. And I know for a fact, any given Sunday or Saturday, whenever they do play, that I can trust this offense to go and put points on the board. But what has changed with the Rams now is that we're looking at a borderline elite defense. The way that they were able to get to the quarterback, the way that they were covering anything that the Vikings had last night, you have to give credit to what they were doing in the secondary. And it helps when your defensive line is getting so much pressure on the quarterback. But again, what a performance from the Rams. They showed that they are still one of the teams that you have to respect. But Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay, credit to you, Joel, you mentioned it. I'm not going to go into the wins and losses, but watching these two together, it really gives you a whole appreciation for this tenure of Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Because Jared Goff was able to achieve a good amount with the Rams, but never was able to get over the hump. With this Rams team, this isn't an overwhelmingly talented team. It's definitely gotten that as the season has progressed, both last and this year, especially what they were able to do in the draft this year with Fisk and, of course, Jared Verse, what they're able to provide. But this is just a team and a core that just knows how to play winning football. And with the way that they've been playing these last few weeks, especially on the defensive side of the ball, it makes the Ram a scary team.
Yeah, shout out to Chris Shula. I mean, Chris Shula is probably, we talk about Sean McVay so much, the offense, masterminds, all of that. But Chris Shula had Sam Darnold in hell. Everything was covered up, right? You mentioned it. We went through all of the sacks that Sam Darnold took, and sure, there was a couple like, oh yeah, couldn't make this throw, this check down, but for a lot of the time, things were covered up. This honestly felt like the Rams were coming off a bye, and they knew the Vikings were their opponent, and they had 2 weeks to prepare while the Vikings, last minute had the Lions week 18. They really had to prepare for the Lions because they had to get it. Like, this felt like the Rams had a rest advantage and a preparation advantage off rip. The first drive of the game, the Rams go right down the field, and you mentioned the throw that Stafford had to Kyron Williams, and that was just the beginning, because it felt like every single drive after that, it was the same. Like, you thought Minnesota had some stops here and there, and, I know in totality, right, they scored 30-plus points, but the Vikings offense just did not help the defense. The amount of sacks they were taking, the turnovers they had, the strip six, I mean, everything was piling up that this defense was on the field so damn much. It's hard to stop a good offense as is, but then when your offense isn't producing, you got to be on the field even more. It makes it that much more difficult. But yeah, this game, as much as we should praise Stafford in this offense and Sean McVay, this just goes to show how great of an organization the Rams are. I mean, this is a team that has been saying, fuck those picks, fuck those kids for years and years. And every year they're able to pick up guys on day 2 and day 3 of the draft to be huge contributors. And then when they finally get a first round pick, they get Jared Verse, who's probably going to be the defensive rookie of the year. I mean, from the top down, from Les Snead GM to the coaching staff of McVay and Chris Shula, and of course the players, Puka Nacua, Matthew Stafford, the whole nine, the offensive line, who's been built a lot through this draft as well. This team is great. This team is really strong. I definitely overlooked them. I thought the Vikings, this is 2 out of the last 3 years now. The Vikings won 13 games. They lost to Daniel Jones and the Giants on their own home turf. They won 14 games this season with a chance to be the number 1 seed. Got blown out by the Rams, who, it's not Daniel Jones and the Giants, a better team than that. But you were a slight favorite going into the game. You had won 14 games. You were great on offense all season. You were great on defense all season. It's a disappointment, right? Like this, although this was a rebuilding year, because I didn't think the Vikings were going to be nearly as good. Not 14 wins. I didn't think they were going to be a 500 team.
No, in fact.
But like you said about the Chargers a couple nights ago, once you're in the situation and you did win 14 games, well, it's different now, right? Like, this is a team that I thought had a chance to, oh shit, sneaky, can you beat the Rams? Now you go into Philly, and can you get pressure on Jalen Hurts and, be so efficient because you got KOC in this offense? Can you be a sneaky team to get bounced in the first round in that fashion, where this game was never really competitive, right? Like, you had maybe very slight opportunities where it was like a 7-point game and Stafford might have had a fumble, but it was an incompletion. For the most part, the Rams dominated this game from start to finish. Joel, I think you did have a good point, though. I think you either tweeted out, you had a video, short form, whatever. it does put a little bit of a clearer picture for the Vikings, though, because although there are rumors out there, Jesse Fowler reported that Sam Darnold still has a market north of $30 million. I do think it makes it a bit easier to go into the offseason and be like, all right, Sam, that was amazing. That was great. Even Kevin O'Connell after the game felt very much like this is the end of the road. Like Sam gave us a good job, but it's not going to last here. It does make things a bit clearer. You have JJ McCarthy. He was out the whole year, but he's a starting quarterback going forward. You don't have to play do we sign Sam to a $40 million contract? What do we do with JJ? Do we trade JJ? I think it does paint a bit of a clearer picture for better or for worse, because we don't know what JJ McCarthy is going to be, but it does make the decision a bit easier to say, Sam, you can move on. We have a quarterback on a rookie contract. We can continue to build out this team. I think the biggest question for them going forward is just retaining the staff, because I think Brian Flores is going to be a hot commodity on the head coaching market. And I think Josh McCown, there's a decent chance that he becomes an offensive coordinator if Brian Flores does get hired there. But disappointing season for Minnesota, and big shout out to the Rams, because I agree with you, Drew. I'm going to take Philly. I don't have the balls to bet against them because they've been so dominant all season long. But this Rams team with a proven head coach, a proven quarterback, a defense that can get after the quarterback, it's not going to be easy for Philly.
No.
They have to play better than what they did against the Packers. They have to be more consistent on offense than they were against Green Bay to beat this Rams team.
I think with the Vikings, the pathway probably becomes very clear. Even with some theories out there that, they could bring back Sam Darnold for cheap now. It can be a better deal. I feel like you got to go all in on JJ McCarthy. I mean, this is what it is. And Sam Darnold this year, the Vikings offense, it didn't really feature a lot of checkdowns or short options underneath. And the reason for that is because Sam Darnold has historically struggled with that throughout his career. So a lot of the Vikings concepts have been longer developing concepts. So it makes sense why Darnold holds on to the ball longer. KOC, I think, is now put under a little bit of a microscope. He's a miracle worker. He's gotten the best out of Sam Darnold. Kirk had an amazing year as well. And I think now the Vikings spot becomes one of those spots where quarterbacks that fail in situations go there to maybe revive their career. Daniel Jones back up next year with JJ McCarthy starting. That's probably going to be the move. And now you have cap space to get better on the roster. I thought their run defense was exposed last night. I mean, it was terrible. They don't have that presence up front. Harrison Phillips has been all right, but he's just a guy. KOC now has lost 2 playoff games against Daniel Jones and the Giants, and you can argue that, well, it was the defense's fault. You also, you hire the DC, and offensively, it's not like they put together many drives either. In the biggest drive of the game, they kind of crumbled. And then now with Sam Darnold on the road against the Rams, I kind of thought in the second half, it felt like KOC kind of just quit on the team.
I thought so too.
With the runs he was calling, the early down runs.
Oh my God, we're insane. They were insane.
It was just
they were
like,
down 3 touchdowns.
He was waving the white flag and like, let's just get this game over with. I don't want to be here no more. And I thought it was just a very bad look.
He was watching Sammy Chuck.
Yeah, if you're gonna go down, maybe on the box score it looks prettier that Darnold didn't throw 3 interceptions. But I think what I learned from this weekend is that, the best quarterback performances, or I should say the worst quarterback performances, were the ones that had the least amount of help, the least amount of game planning around. I look at Justin Herbert and the Chargers. I didn't think the offensive game plan was that sound. Herbert threw 4 interceptions. One of them wasn't his fault. The first one where he threw a crossbody to Quentin Johnson is a terrible decision because we know Quentin Johnson isn't that good, but he's thinking of it from the perspective of Quentin Johnson is 6'4", and if anything, this is an incompletion because maybe he's going to fight for the ball. It was one of those trust throws, and Herbert throws a lot of trust throws to receivers.
Dumbass decision.
Trust throw,
cross body, cross field.
He got it there.
That was terrible.
He got it there. He definitely got it there.
He got it there.
There's no defending that throw. It was terrible.
2 dudes over there.
No, it was a little bit short. Herbert said he could have threw a little bit higher. But like Quentin Johnson played like no defense there,
I'm not putting that on Quentin Johnson.
It's a trust throw.
I hear you, but also
it's a trust throw.
Come on, man.
Joel, stop.
It's a trust throw.
Joel,
it's a trust.
stop.
He trusted Quentin Johnson.
First off, that's number 1. Mistake on Herbert.
Yeah, but
number 2.
At Quentin Johnson, 2 years. You know
it
what
was
Quentin Johnson
a horrible. I'm gonna cross body. I'm gonna throw it like 40 yards down the field, the opposite side
If you
I'm
make
on.
that throw, you better make sure there's no defenders within 20 yards of a guy.
If you make that throw, you get drug tested on the spot too.
And then the pick six, a little bit high over McConkey, but it was like, for it to be a pick six, a little bit unlucky, a little bit unfortunate. Really, though, the quarterback that was pressured the most, quick pressures, which means like as soon as you're at the top of your drop, somebody's in your face, was Justin Herbert. Like the Texans' defensive line, they dominated the Chargers' offensive line. Like what we saw is that all of the teams that had better personnel up front won their games.
Hey, win in the trenches, man.
The quarterbacks that struggled the most were the ones that had offensive lines that struggled to protect. And I thought the Vikings offensive line really struggled to protect Sam Darnold. And the number one priority for the Vikings is improving that interior offensive line. But yeah, Darnold didn't play well either. He was off target on maybe 10 throws. And I also what I noticed is that, a lot of the throws that he was off target on, it was by a little bit, but it wasn't like they were wide open throws. Like everything felt very hard and compressed for the offense. And with the Rams, it is hard to evaluate them. The offense, the quarterback dynamic, and the head coach dynamic of it, that's very easy. It's Stafford, it's McVay. They give you a chance against anybody. The defense is very difficult to evaluate because I think their defensive line up front is elite. Their secondary, I have major question marks about, and I do think that a great offense with a great game plan could pick them apart.
They should have got picked apart in theory yesterday.
I was gonna say,
but they clamped.
Going into the playoffs, if you said find someone who's gonna have a great game plan and a great offense, the Vikings would have been pretty high on that list
For sure.
After the Lions game, I feel like it kind of felt a little bit different.
But again, it wasn't because of the game plan. There was dudes open.
No, you're right. I thought it was just Sam Darnold playing poorly. I just look at the Rams now and their defense. It's played better, but like you look at the competition they played. Week 18 doesn't matter because, the Seahawks, they were just, they didn't play nobody against them. But the Cardinals, it was like a tough, ugly game, but the Cardinals still found a way to move the ball on them. The game before that was against the New York Jets. We know how anemic their offensive bit has been this year. Really,
they're the Niners of the rain.
They've had great defensive performances, but like there's so much context behind that. And the last time they faced some high level offenses was the Eagles and the Bills, and they both kind of did their thing against them. And I think against the Eagles, the Rams are gonna have a chance, and it's really just about how the Eagles protect Jalen Hurts up front. Like Cody Alexander, who he wrote a book called Match Coverage. He's excellent. He does a lot of great work. He stole this from Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan said this: when teams play cover zero on you, it's not about your receivers being able to win one-on-one against corners. It's about your protection plan. Because any corner against any receiver, one-on-one with no safety help, it's always going to be a 50-50 thing. It's just very hard to cover a receiver with no help at all. It's just difficult. So you have to be sound in your protection plan. We know that the Eagles' offensive line is great, but they're great when they can protect one-on-one and they know who's coming at them. With the Rams, they're going to run a lot of stunts, and it's going to be about how the Eagles can pick up those stunts. And they're a well-coached offensive line, so I think they will be able to do it. But that's how they're going to have to give themselves a chance to beat Philly. They're going to have to cause a lot of disruption and hope that Jalen Hurts has a bad game, or the offensive design and game plan isn't there, because we saw how simple it was against the Packers, and against the Rams, if it's that simple, even if the Rams don't have the personnel to match up with Goddard and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, if the plan is better than theirs, they have a realistic chance to win that game.
I do think that Saquon's still going to be the dominant force that he is, and I'm not even going based off. I'm not. Let me not say that.
It's going just the offensive line. They're going to push the Rams' defensive line.
I was going to say, and the way that he dominated that matchup first go around, I'm not anticipating a similar performance like that, but he still will leave his imprint on this game, and it's going to be a tough one. But regardless, with the way that the Rams have been playing football, with the way that obviously their coach, the defensive line that they have, the quarterback, the skill position players, this is not a team that you sleep on. I think that they are a better team than the Packers. I think they're more well-rounded than the Packers. And going up against the Eagles, like you mentioned, Joel, if Jalen Hurts and the pass offense don't figure it out, this is not a team that you can get lackadaisical on at all.
Yeah. And also, you can't forget, got a dome team going outside.
You're calling the Rams a dome team?
Yeah.
I guess that's true.
They play in a dome.
They do. That's a good point.
They were in a dome because they're in Arizona. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Doesn't their dome open up?
SoFi does open, I think.
It's California. It does ever get fucking
I
bad
think it
weather.
does open up.
Tell you what, this game in Philly is going to be the fucking coldest game they play of the year, probably.
They might, yeah.
I watched Matthew Stafford. No. I'm lying. Let me not say that. I did not. That's not what I want to say.
Stafford doesn't give me the same cold weather quarterback vibes like a Jared Goff.
No,
you know what I mean?
I'll be honest with you. Well, he did play in Detroit for years. Fair. Was Ford? Didn't they renovate it, or I'm tweaking?
Pretty sure it's always been a dome.
I think it was always a dome.
Oh, then
I
I'm
feel
lying.
like even Barry
never-
Sanders
trying to
is a
bullshit.
dome.
Yeah, no, Stafford, he was amazing against the blitz. You know, like he was pressured quickly a lot in this game.
You think you
not
can find stats like that offhand?
not
What?
pressured?
Matthew Stafford stats outside.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
definitely.
probably could find it.
You could find splits on like Pro Football Reference.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford, he wasn't pressured as much as Sam Darnold, but on the times that he was pressured, he was amazing.
Man, respect him. Matthew Stafford has a passer rating of 97 with 5,000 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions in his last 20 games outside.
It's pretty damn good.
Oh wait, 20 games.
This guy Dehls, man. Stop doubting Matt.
Whoa, bro,
I'll be
I
honest
said-
with you. These stats probably are wrong.
I said Stafford doesn't give me like he's gonna struggle outside. Hold on.
did.
Yeah,
say
you
that.
find it, bro. I probably found some nonsense.
Okay, here we go. Outdoors, Matthew Stafford in his career.
If you're really rambly, you know who you got to pick.
I said my hot take.
All right, let's see. So he averages outdoors 268 yards per game. For context, 271 in a dome, so about the same. Okay, oh, that's not right. It's like receiving touchdowns or some shit. 113 touchdowns to 63 picks, 88 rating, compared to 234 touchdowns, 115 interceptions, and a 92 passer rating. So slightly worse, but more or less the same.
I just think the big thing in this game is
Completion
just going to
percentage
be
drops 3%.
you know how the Rams offensive line could protect up front. You know, the first matchup, Matthew Stafford got his ass kicked. You know, that defensive
Even
line.
yesterday, he kind of was getting his ass kicked
Yeah,
too.
the Rams offensive line was not able to protect it against the Eagles defensive line at all. So if they can just rush with 4, and that's really what makes the Eagles so dangerous, is that they can just rush with 4. They don't have to send extra defenders at you to get pressure at you. So you can drop back more players in coverage. And, you know, Stafford, not mobile of a quarterback. He can move around a little bit, but against that defensive line, I really think that's the biggest difference in this game.
In my perfect world, the Eagles and the Rams would have matched up in the NFC Championship. This wasn't ideal for me in my Rams hot take of them going to an NFC Chip.
Yeah, the Buccaneers, you know, they had to take care of business for
They
that to
blew it.
happen. Yeah.
Fucking had it.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Pick a Side Podcast, episode 445. You guys can follow us on Instagram at Pick a Side Podcast, on Twitter at Pick a Side Pod, on TikTok at Pick a Side Podcast.
RIP.
Hopefully, you know, TikTok does stay. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.